This narrative deviates from the conventional themes of immortality, steering clear of simplistic storytelling, and gradually unfolds into a captivating tale after 100 chapters. It is a story steeped in madness, underscoring the notion that the more tranquil one becomes, the more blood must be shed. The protagonist, Mou An, prides himself on being a virtuous person, yet the world bestows upon him the ominous title of the god of death. What are the bandits who claim dominion over the mountains? They are slaughtered until their remnants litter the capital. What are the sinister cults that offer blood sacrifices? They are annihilated until the land is drenched in their blood. What are the deceitful aristocracy? They are eradicated until their lineage is reduced to ashes. As the Juke faction vies for the imperial throne, who emerges victorious and legitimate? Kill, kill, kill. In the heart of the mountains, he treads upon shattered bones. Upon the hill of corpses, he wipes his blade clean. Though the world condemns him as a god of death, he laughs heartily, proclaiming, "Indeed, I am a man of great virtue." Chapter 1. The Opening a Grave. The grave of his adoptive father, Mu Ping. Qing Ming, with rain falling like tears. A solitary grave, a cup of wine, a roasted chicken, and a handful of gold ingots. The rain upon the grave mound carries a particularly desolate chill, biting through the air. Old man, in these times, the court lacks credibility. The paper currency issued years ago is now scarcely accepted. I wonder if the ghostly currency in the underworld has met a similar fate. Thus, I have exchanged it for gold ingots. Gold holds its value, and you might find a bit of comfort beneath the earth. The wine remains untouched, the chicken unserved, while 3 incense sticks burn slowly, wavering precariously in the drizzling rain. An extinguished incense is an ill omen. Observing the incense's imminent demise and the intensifying rain, the mood of the solitary figure at the grave visibly darkens. He leans forward, placing an oil paper umbrella over the incense burner to shield it from the falling rain. Having completed this task, Mou An returns to his seat, casting crumpled yellow paper into the flames alongside the gold ingots. The hastily folded gold ingots are prone to extinguishing, and in this rainy weather, they're even more susceptible, an omen of misfortune. At that moment, a jarring sound echoes from afar, mingling with the wind and rain atop the mountain. "Stop, you scoundrel! Quickly pursue. The magistrate has commanded that we must apprehend the fugitive murderer. Get moving. If we fail to catch him, we'll face deductions from our pay." The voices grow clearer, and the figures of those in pursuit draw closer. They rush along the mountain path, splattering mud that tarnishes the gravestones along the way. Before the fire, as he burns paper offerings, Mou An furrows his brow. His previously calm demeanor takes a swift turn. What is the meaning of such raucous commotion at a grave? Do these wanted criminals not understand decorum? Today is inauspicious. It would be best to complete the rites and return home promptly. After a moment of contemplation, murky wine spills upon the grave. Illuminated by the flickering flames, a stone, propelled by a gust of wind, hurtles towards the approaching fugitive. Thud! The stone strikes, and the man falls. Crimson flows, mingling with the mud, a vivid and haunting spectacle that adds a touch of splendor to the cold mountain. The pursuers come to a halt, gasping for breath, their eyes wide and mouths agape, frozen in disbelief. A group of bewildered individuals stands, staring blankly at the fallen criminal. A fist-sized stone has pierced the fugitive's chest, blood gushing forth like a fountain. Clearly, he is beyond salvation. My goodness, how audacious to encroach upon the duties of their enforcement officers. A cohort of men swiftly turned their gazes towards the source of the flames, presuming that a madman had dared to commit a heinous act in their presence. The audacity of these rogues from the underworld had grown increasingly brazen, showing a flagrant disregard for the law. Such scoundrels! They only know how to stir trouble. This would surely be noted down for future reporting to the county magistrate, requesting the patrol officers to apprehend this lunatic. As for why they themselves did not intervene, a single stone could obliterate a life, piercing through a chest. Such a formidable foe was far beyond the capacity of these mere constables to confront. With a limited number of officers and paltry monthly wages, only a fool would risk their life in such a perilous situation. Yet, as representatives of the court, they could not afford to lose face. Clad in their official garb, they must maintain an air of authority. The 2 leading constables, poised to bellow a reprimand, instantly straightened upon recognizing the figure before the fire, wishing fervently to seal their lips. Report a mere phantom. The esteemed Lord Mu of the Anshan Patrol Office, a figure of considerable influence, presiding over the security of the town and its surrounding areas, commanding nearly 200 soldiers under his authority. Ultimately, any report would likely find its way to his desk. Even the county magistrate would have to show him a modicum of respect, treating him with courtesy whenever they crossed paths. Exchanging glances, the two constables silently calculated their next move. A ruthless killer of criminals? Where? They had seen none. Clearly, it was Lord Mou's benevolence that had facilitated the swift resolution of this defiant criminal. In a matter of moments, the two constables advanced to lift the lifeless body from the ground, proceeding dutifully alongside their colleagues to the burial mound. Only the head constable remained steadfast, standing 3 to 4 meters away from Mou An, bowing respectfully. The fugitive was a vicious outlaw, roaming freely and resisting arrest with utmost ferocity. Had it not been for Lord Mou's timely intervention in dispatching the criminal, we would have likely suffered severe casualties. I express my gratitude on behalf of my fellow officers to Lord Mou. Lord Mou possesses exceptional strength and has rendered invaluable service. The presence of Lord Mou in Qing'an County is indeed a blessing for the people. Before the grave, Mou An slowly rose, his gaze sweeping over the two head constables standing beside him. Without formality, he offered a slight nod before casting the final piece of yellow paper into the flames. The two head constables dared not rush him, standing respectfully to the side, patiently awaiting Mou An to complete his rites. Only when the flames had extinguished did Mou An rub his hands together and leisurely approach the two men. Constable Chun, Constable Wang? Who was the villain that so desperately resisted and dared to provoke the authority of the court? Mou An's voice was calm and composed, devoid of any turbulence, as if he were not the one who had just contravened the law by executing a fugitive. His words had already assigned a definition to the incident. The two head constables, unfazed by the inquiry, responded respectfully. Your Excellency, this individual is a bandit who has fled from Yuanshan County, responsible for the massacre of a family of 5. Discovered in our county today at the hour of Chun, Lord Chao ordered us to apprehend this man. As soon as Constable Chun finished speaking, Constable Wang dutifully added his own insights. The bandits are ruthless, and despite the brothers of the capture squad exerting great effort, they have been unable to apprehend the thieves. They intended to report to the authorities, but today, serendipitously, they encountered the Lord in advance. The smooth words brought a nod of satisfaction from Mou An. More often than not, he preferred interacting with these seasoned individuals over the stubbornly rigid youths. Their cooperation facilitated matters, sparing him from unnecessary troubles. Recalling how the two had respected his solitude earlier by quietly waiting at the side, Mou An casually offered a few reminders. In the coming days, exercise caution. The notorious bandit, Bloodblade Zhang Jiao, has been roaming the nearby county. Be vigilant and avoid any disturbances. Pausing under the slightly anxious gazes of the two captains, Mou An added, the wanted notice should be dispatched within the next couple of days. Should you encounter that rogue, do not attempt to be brave. Report directly to the Anshan Inspection Office. He refrained from providing further details, as the county office had also received related orders. However, the newly appointed magistrate, surnamed Chao, was still finding his footing and had been hesitant to assert control over his subordinates, leading to delays in communication. Yet, the magistrate was not a fool. While he might create difficulties, he would never truly jeopardize the situation. Moreover, the bandit was ferocious, having already claimed the lives of over 80 people, with more than 10 of those being lawmen. He was a formidable figure in the underworld. Elaborating further would only instill fear. As praises echoed around him, Mou An waved his hand, silencing the incessant chatter of the two men. Both captains were rather coarse, illiterate, and their limited vocabulary often led to mismatched expressions, making their conversation uncomfortable for him. When you return to the county office, inform Magistrate Chao. The matter concerning the bandit is serious. Let the personnel be mobilized, and do not let personal matters cause any trouble. Yes, I shall certainly convey your words to Magistrate Chao. Perhaps due to Mou An's presence, the descent was much quieter, and only when the two parted ways, each heading in different directions, did the atmosphere regain a semblance of normalcy. Shen Tu, just how formidable is Lord Mou's martial prowess? Goodness, that stone flew, and the man was dead. Mind your inquiries. Lord Mou is a prodigy. By the age of 15, he had already bested all the martial arts schools within 10 miles, earning the title of the foremost in Qing'an County. Now, after several years of refinement, he is not someone ordinary individuals can compare with. Chapter 2. The Day of Ascendance, to be the best in the world. Incense burned, tea was savored, and ancient texts were perused. After paying homage to his adoptive father, Mou An returned to his own residence. The house was quite spacious, with 3 courtyards reminiscent of classic Hui-style architecture. White walls adorned with dark tiles, green bamboo obscuring the view, and winding waters, a complete ensemble. Spanning over 1,000 square meters, the abode contained nearly 20 rooms. However, it was sparsely occupied. Apart from Mou An himself, only 2 maids in their 30s resided there. They had cared for him since his infancy, having been brought into the household by his adoptive father when he was but a babe. Theoretically, they could be considered his wet nurses, yet in reality, Mou An had affectionately referred to them as Xiao He and Xiao LV since he was quite young in his youth. No one found it peculiar. They simply attributed it to the innate mimicry of children. Over time, they gradually grew accustomed to such a designation. Initially, there were others in the household, all brought in from Muxiao village following the death of his adoptive father. Most were young boys and girls. The boys were anticipated to be trained by Mou An, with the hope that they would eventually be placed within the inspection bureau as they matured. The girls, on the other hand, hoped he would select a suitable wife from among them. However, Mou An harbored no fondness for this arrangement and chose to send them all back. Given that no one in the Mou family possessed greater martial prowess than he, coupled with the precedent set by his adoptive father's rebellious legacy, the clan elders chose not to contest his decision. In a large family, there must be an individual to play the role of the villain, and Mou An embodied this character. Those who trained in martial arts and donned the black gloves often had a more tempestuous temperament. Perhaps out of affection, or for other reasons, Mu Ping publicly declared Mou An to be his biological son, adding his name to the Mou family genealogy. In the eyes of the clan elders in Muxiao village, Mou An was regarded as the illegitimate child of Mu Ping and some woman. Though he was a mere illegitimate offspring, and thus not fit for public acknowledgement, Mou An's remarkable talent in martial arts led the elders to tacitly accept Mu Ping's decision, adhering to the principle of avoiding unnecessary enmity within the family. Mu Ping's reputation as a youthful dandy, known for his indiscreet private life, was a common perception among the villagers. Yet, only Mou An understood the true nature of his adoptive father. Mu Ping had never married, and Mou An was the child he had rescued from the river, raised from the very beginning of his journey. He felt no desire to comment on his adoptive father's private affairs, for the kindness shown to him over the past 2 decades was a debt he could not ignore. All else seemed trivial in comparison. In these 20 years, the essential system that every transmigrator typically possessed had yet to manifest. Though Mou An sometimes felt a twinge of concern regarding this absence, it was fleeting and hardly significant. The reason was simple. From the moment he arrived in this new world, he had already achieved the ultimate dream of countless cultivators: immortality. The source of his abilities remained a mystery to him, and he lacked the means to investigate further. All he knew was that an ancient tome had accompanied him to this realm, devoid of a title or physical form, materializing in his mind as a consciousness that inscribed an unknown cultivation method within him. Equally etched into his awareness was the undeniable truth of his newfound immortality. One certainty remained: the path he trod was not that of martial arts, but rather the ethereal way of immortality. The spiritual energy he cultivated, along with a distinctly different method of practice, attested to this. In solitary cultivation, Mou An was oblivious to whether his progress was swift or languid. With no benchmarks for comparison, and given the frequent assertions in novels that the spiritual energy on Earth was sparse and ill-suited for cultivation, it seemed reasonable that one could spend centuries without notable results. In contrast to characters in novels who toiled for a century or more without manifesting any spiritual power, Mou An believed he exhibited a degree of talent. In the realm of mortal cultivation, devoid of spiritual artifacts to assist him, he had developed a robust physique and a measure of spiritual energy over the span of several years. Light of foot and agile of form, he could navigate the night with clarity, capable of matching even the finest martial artists in numerous bouts. In numerous encounters, he could effortlessly slice ordinary first-rate experts into dozens of pieces. As for the more formidable innate masters, Mou An had yet to engage them in combat. However, he felt that merely brushing against them would not be out of reach. Regarding the legendary celestial beings, Mou An remained reticent, merely indicating his own capability of invoking rain, albeit in a rather diminutive manner, just sufficient to water the small flowers upon his desk. Ultimately, this world remains perilously treacherous. While its dangers may not be overtly apparent, there lurk many elements hidden from the grasp of ordinary individuals. Without ascending to the corresponding echelon, one would find it exceedingly challenging to comprehend the matters at hand. Various factors have collectively shaped the present state of Mou An. He harbored no grand aspirations, nor did he possess many thoughts. His sole desire was to safeguard the modest piece of land bequeathed to him by his adoptive father, remaining stationed in the position of inspector in Qing'an County for decades. The Dachi dynasty implemented a policy of military-civilian separation, consolidating local security through the inspectorate in designated regions. After receiving appointments from the court, local authorities would independently establish these offices, which were inherited across generations. The hereditary position of inspector was the most precious legacy left to him by Mu Ping. Although it ranked as a mere ninth-grade position, it wielded substantial power, governing local security and serving as the core of local autonomy. With a population exceeding 200,000 in Qing'an County, situated along vital transportation routes, it housed 3 inspectorates. Among them, the Anshan Inspectorate was the largest in scale and strongest in armed force, responsible for maintaining order among the 10,000 villagers in the Anshan region. This local power had been entrenched in the land for over a century, representing the prevailing influence in Anshan. The position of inspector had been passed down through generations of the Mu family. The county's various departments totaled no more than 100 personnel, with armed forces numbering around 80. In contrast, the soldiers beneath the Anshan Inspectorate exceeded 200. With an army at his disposal, naturally, came considerable influence. There were no deep-seated grievances or emotional entanglements. Last winter, his adoptive father succumbed to a chronic ailment, leaving this world despite all remedies. During his adoptive father's final moments in the hospital, Mou An exerted himself to fulfill every responsibility to the best of his ability. In his last breath, Mu Ping grasped Mou An's hand, imploring him to preserve the stability of the Mu family for the next 2 decades. Given his disinterest in the tumultuous world of martial arts, Mou An could not refuse. Out of respect and reason, he pledged to exert his utmost effort to honor his father's request. From the age of 13, Mou An had already engaged in the affairs of the Anshan Inspectorate. Over the span of 7 years, he adeptly resolved numerous cases, thereby garnering significant renown. Following Mu Ping's death, Mou An, having vanquished all challengers in the county, seamlessly assumed his adoptive father's position, becoming the head of the Anshan Inspectorate. In the jurisdiction of Qing'an County, no one could impose authority over Mou An, and life grew increasingly tranquil. The county's inhabitants spoke courteously, each brimming with talent, and there were always those eager to present him with gifts. Particularly, the various small sects and factions never failed to send tributes annually. Life flourished in a most gratifying manner. Mou An's existence revolved around a simple routine, attending to official duties at the inspectorate and savoring tea while cultivating his skills at home. He experienced a sense of freedom, unencumbered by constraints. In a certain sense, this could be viewed as the direct realization of the ultimate aspiration from his previous life. With formal employment secured, he was now nourished by the provisions of the state, such a life, and is prepared to endure for several decades. Until the age when ordinary individuals can no longer persist, he shall relocate, assume a new identity, and continue to exist in obscurity until he becomes invincible. In a world where immortals may exist, the secret of eternal life must remain concealed until he achieves unparalleled supremacy. On the day he emerges from seclusion, he shall claim the title of the world's foremost. Chapter 3. A Murder. In a residence of approximately 1,000 square meters, only 3 individuals resided, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. However, Mou An had always cherished solitude and paid little heed to such matters. Recently, he had amassed a considerable collection of Buddhist and Taoist scriptures, engaging in serene contemplation. It was not that he possessed a profound fondness for these texts, but rather he sought to immerse himself in the classics, thereby enhancing his own cultivation. Within just a few months, his study had become filled with 3 shelves of books, primarily sourced from prominent families within Qing'an County, along with a few contributions from various factions. In this era, books were exceedingly precious, and with the meager stipend from the court, acquiring such treasures was a formidable challenge. Furthermore, Mou An had expended most of his funds on other pursuits. The notion of wealth in martial prowess, poverty in literature may not be absolute. Yet the practice of cultivation undeniably demanded vast amounts of gold and silver, rendering it a realm far removed from the common populace. However, today's reading was not as placid as usual. 2 official documents issued by the provincial government lay before him, one a wanted notice, the other a warning. The former pertained to a traitor from the Tiandao sect, who had heinously slain an elder during his defection. The Tiandao sect was a renowned and formidable faction in the martial world, boasting a vast number of disciples, and the murdered elder was a distinguished master of significant repute. Considering the potential for ambushes and other factors, the court's announcement had classified the traitor, Bloodblade Zhang Jiao, as a second-tier threat. Moreover, during his flight, he had brutally killed dozens of law enforcement officers, massacred numerous households, and even slain a silver-ranked covert agent from the Dark Feather Guard. As the situation escalated, the wanted notice was disseminated across the nation. Recently, traces of Bloodblade Zhang Jiao had been discovered 30 miles away in Tangshan County, prompting the local inspection offices within a 100-mile radius to receive pertinent intelligence. The governor of Lingzhou had issued a decree, insisting that this madman be brought to justice within the confines of Lingzhou. The latter document pertained to a notorious band of thieves known in the martial world for their emblem of the Night Crow, earning them the moniker of the Night Crow Bandits. Over the past few years, this group had pilfered from numerous affluent households, comprising several second- and third-rate thieves along with a few unsavory characters. Rumors circulated that this band of robbers boasted several skilled practitioners, though such claims remained unverified. Their most infamous exploit involved the theft of a treasured heirloom from the governor of Yongzhou, leading to a nationwide manhunt. Due to the relatively lesser threat they posed, the provincial government merely issued a warning, urging vigilance across various locales. Reflecting upon the intelligence he had perused at the inspection office the previous day, Mou An furrowed his brow and set aside the Taoist classic he had been studying. Intelligence, by its very nature, was elusive, and the court's information was particularly dubious. Trusting it could lead to misfortune. In these times, the number of those who adhered to the path of survival was not insignificant, and should one truly believe in such so-called intelligence, the grass upon their graves would surely grow several meters high. Fretful and distracted, he found no benefit in lingering over the matter. It would be prudent to prepare early. Although Mou An held little affection for the court, he recognized that for his survival to endure, stability in Qing'an County was imperative. Those who obstructed the path would face merciless retribution. Tick-tock, tick-tock. In the low-lying areas of the street, rainwater gathered, flooding over his toes. The rain above had ceased, yet water continued to collect on the eaves, cascading down the corners with a crisp sound. Splash. Beneath the eaves, the county's constable, Chun Hu, removed his rain-soaked garments and twisted them vigorously into a tangled mass. Rainwater mingled with sweat streamed down the wrinkled fabric, splashing against the puddles below with a resounding clatter. Compared to the luxurious silk robes, such coarse cloth was remarkably durable, requiring little concern. Only after wringing his shirt into a twisted shape did Chun Hu don it again, peering through the eaves at the pitch-black heavens. At last, the incessant rain had ceased. The sky had darkened, and with 12 households yet to be notified, he needed to hasten his pace to return home sooner. Reflecting on the day's events, Chun Hu could not help but feel a tinge of urgency. Recently, a notorious bandit had been reported roaming near the county town, a ruthless individual implicated in numerous killings. For a small county like Qing'an, the presence of such a dangerous figure was unheard of. Consequently, the county magistrate convened an emergency meeting, and the 3 esteemed inspectors arrived at the county office, their expressions laden with concern. If the high-ranking officials were so troubled, one could only imagine the anxiety felt by those of lower rank. Rumors soared through the air, with several brothers gathering to discuss the bandits' formidable reputation and their own misfortunes. They seemed to bolster the courage of others while diminishing their own resolve. Fear mingled with an inexplicable excitement. Chun Hu did not fully grasp this sentiment, yet he found solace in the shared anxiety of his peers. As for the prospect of engaging in a confrontation with the bandit, he dismissed the thought. Ultimately, the bandit had been sighted in a neighboring county, making it improbable for him to venture into Qing'an. Though he exchanged despondent remarks with his colleagues, as if calamity loomed at any moment, Chun Hu did not harbor significant fear. The likelihood of encountering the bandit was exceedingly low. Even if he were to appear in the county town, the inspectors would address the threat. Compared to the officers in the inspectorate, their band of constables was decidedly less formidable. How fearsome could a single outlaw truly be? Could he possibly rival the esteemed Lord Mou of their county? Nevertheless, the magistrate had issued a decree enforcing a curfew in Qing'an. The constables were tasked with notifying each household to refrain from venturing out at night during these perilous times. Thus, Chun Hu found himself traversing the rain-soaked streets. Due to the unexpected downpour, he had only managed to notify a little over half the residents, leaving 12 households yet to be informed. Under the eaves, Chun Hu donned his shirt once more, reminded of his wife and children awaiting his return for dinner. A smile involuntarily graced his lips, quickening his steps. His precious daughter, now 2 years old, a tiny bundle of energy, always insisted on lying on his belly to fall asleep. Chun-Hu, unfamiliar with profound philosophies, found that simply watching her giggle could brighten his mood considerably. Today, Lord Mou from the Anshan Inspectorate gifted him a longevity lock, intended as a present for his daughter. To a constable like him, who found it difficult to be harsh, such a token was invaluable. Lord Mou was indeed a kind-hearted man, and it was no wonder the villagers held him in such high esteem. Cherishing the gift, Chun-Hu placed it close to his heart, frequently feeling its presence as a reminder of his daughter's joy. He had previously lost things, faced reprimands from his parents, and endured scoldings from his wife. This time, he could not afford to be careless again. The thought of his daughter's joyful face upon his return filled Chun-Hu with renewed vigor, and he knocked on the door with greater intensity, his voice resonating with newfound strength. Knock, knock, knock. Scholar Huang, it is I, Chun-Hu from the county office. Knock, knock, knock. Scholar Huang, odd, is no one home at this late hour? After calling out several times without a response, Chun-Hu stepped back, scratching his head in confusion. Scholar Huang was a notable figure in the county, literate and educated, wielding a degree of influence. Failing to notify him properly could lead to complications later. Yet, for some reason, Chun-Hu felt an unsettling sense that something was amiss. What could it be? Never mind. Only 2 families remained. He needed to finish notifying them and hurry home. As he approached the street corner, a flash of insight struck him. He recalled that there had been light in the house upon his arrival. It was only when he returned to the entrance of Scholar Huang's home, feeling the cold wind chill his back, that he realized the gravity of his actions. The light had vanished. With the bandits on the loose, there was light in Scholar Huang's home, yet no one answered. Though lacking concrete evidence, Chun-Hu instinctively envisioned a bloody scene. His grip on the knife tightened, knuckles cracking under the pressure, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Gazing at the tightly shut door and the darkened windows, he took a deep breath. He turned on his heel and departed. He needed to summon help. Regardless of what transpired within, everyone should gather their gear and rush in together. Just as he took a step forward, a glimmer of silver flashed in the night. A lifeless body lay on the ground, hot blood gushing forth, staining Chun-Hu's chest. The damp clothing absorbed the liquid, deepening in hue and carrying a pungent metallic scent. With a clatter, a copper lock fell, striking the ground and splashing dark droplets. A light rain began to fall again, concealing the crimson scene. A murder has occurred. Chapter 4: The wail of a defeated dog before its demise 3 streets away. Mou An held an oiled paper umbrella as he traversed the thoroughfare. 8 soldiers from the inspection department, armed with sabers, trailed closely behind him, maintaining a steady pace and appropriate distance. After departing from the county office, he had taken a detour to procure some medicinal herbs at the apothecary and distributed a bit of food to the beggars in town. Just as he was about to leave the city, at the instant the piercing scream echoed, Mou An was already in motion, turning to face the source of the sound. The 8 soldiers swiftly formed a protective formation around him, their movements synchronized as they ran, ensuring his safety. Their well-trained display elicited a slight nod of acknowledgement from Mou An, though he had no intention of relying on their protection. In mere moments, a figure clad in official garments had leapt onto the rooftops, darting swiftly across the tiles. The winding streets afforded a quicker path when traversed in a straight line. By the time the soldiers of the inspection department arrived at the scene, they were greeted by a chaotic tableau. 2 figures danced across the street, engaging in combat that shifted from ground to rooftop and back again, each clash resonating with thunderous echoes. Bricks shattered, rainwater splattered, and silver blades glimmered in the night sky. The sound of clashing swords shattered the tranquility of the rainy night. The 8 soldiers encircled the 2 figures at the earliest opportunity, their footing still unsteady. A shadowy figure arced through the air, hurtling backward several meters before crashing to the ground, his long blade striking the earth and sending sparks flying. The fallen figure bowed his head, half kneeling as he clutched his chest, gasping for breath. It was none other than the notorious bandit, Bloodblade Zhangjiu, who was wanted for his heinous crimes. In the center of the fray, Mou An did not retreat, nor did he pursue with fervor. He merely stood there, gripping his longsword, his gaze fixed unwaveringly upon the wanted criminal before him. The intelligence had been flawed, assessing solely by the depth of his internal energy. This man had undoubtedly achieved an elite level, perhaps not merely a novice. Though slightly inferior to Mou An in terms of skill, he was nonetheless a formidable opponent. And the deaths of the elders from the Heavenly Blade sect and the Silver Order of the Dark Feather were not in vain. Indeed, the court's intelligence had proven unreliable. This madman was ruthless, striking with deadly precision, each blow aimed at vital points, posing an extreme danger. While Mou An feared him not, he was unwilling to take unnecessary risks. A cornered villain is at their most perilous, whether in martial arts or the pursuit of immortality. Until one attains a certain level of mastery, they remain but an ordinary mortal. A death is a death. There are myriad ways to slay a warrior. The annals of the martial world are rife with tales of those who have met their demise in treacherous circumstances. No one could ascertain what hidden cards this fiend might hold. If only he could delay a while longer, reinforcements would arrive. At that point, they could encircle him and rain arrows upon him, ensuring no worries. As for hiding behind his subordinates for safety, allowing them to risk their lives in his stead, Mou An could not bring himself to commit such an act. Though he valued his life, he would not resort to such cowardice. The worst outcome would merely entail allowing this madman to escape, perhaps incurring a slight reduction in his monthly salary, compared to the lives of his subordinates. Such monetary losses were trivial. However, as he stood a few meters away from Zhang Jiao, Mou An's brow furrowed slightly. His peripheral vision catching sight of a familiar corpse lying in the street corner, the drag marks appearing starkly out of place in his eyes. Alas, I had promised him just this afternoon that I would visit his home to see his daughter. Though I know I cannot care for a little one myself, I do find joy in playing with them. Such a tiny creature, crying at the slightest tease and laughing with but a gentle coaxing. How delightful. He even went so far as to procure a longevity lock from the finest craftsman in the county. Humph. A soft snort escaped my lips, and a glint of cold light flickered in my eyes. Yet I remained still, my hands clasped behind my back, waving lightly downward. In an instant, the 8 soldiers understood their leader's intent and launched a signal flare into the sky. Our steps shifted slightly, reducing our encirclement significantly. The rising signal intensified Zhang Jiao's ferocious gaze, his bloodshot eyes scanning the surroundings as if seeking the optimal escape route. Lay down your weapons. I shall grant you a swift end. His customary grandiloquence failed to elicit any reaction, and Zhang Jiao withdrew his gaze from the soldiers, emitting a disdainful snort at Mou An, spitting contemptuously onto the ground. Huh! With such profound skill and youth, how is it that you languish in this small county? Serving as a mere 9th-grade official? What benefits has the court bestowed upon you to make you willing to act as its hound? Is it your tattered garments, or the fleeting thrill of tyranny? His mocking words barely fazed Mou An. Rather, his soldiers' eyes blazed with fury, each eager to charge forth with their blades. Stand down, he commanded, unwavering even in the face of their rage. At the moment the order was given, the 8 soldiers instinctively retreated a few steps, clearing the battlefield once more. The synchronized motion caused Zhang Jiao's pupils to constrict, the scorn in his gaze vanishing, his grip on the hilt tightening. These soldiers were on an entirely different level than those constables. They were not to be underestimated. This was the county seat, and the court's hounds would soon arrive. He needed to escape swiftly. Thoughts swirled in his mind as he leapt towards a soldier, opting for the path of least resistance. Rather than face the unfathomable skill of Mou An, these soldiers were the weaker link. In the blink of an eye, he closed the 10-meter gap. Aiming for the soldier's neck, a vision of blood spattering already forming in his mind, reminiscent of those he had slain after betraying his sect. Clang, clang, clang. Just as his blade was about to sever the soldier's throat, Zhang Jiao altered its course. Steel clashed in a series of sharp, piercing sounds. One blade lunged directly at Zhang Jiao's vital points, while 2 others struck from the sides, intent on bisecting him. The flawless coordination of the 3 soldiers forced Zhang Jiao to switch from offense to defense, retreating several steps. In battle, one must possess the resolve to fight to the death. This was the first lesson Mou An imparted to his soldiers. With numerical superiority, the enemy would not dare to exchange wounds. Striking at vital points and adopting an offensive stance could yield remarkable results at times. The soldiers who had long followed Mou An had ingrained this lesson in their hearts. As the offensive momentum faltered, Zhang Jiao's heart sank at the sight of the soldiers re-establishing their formation. These individuals are indeed peculiar. It is not only the local inspectors who exhibit such behavior. Even the elite forces within the military might not react in this manner. Before he could further contemplate, a powerful strike descended upon him from behind, compelling him to retreat several steps. Seizing this fleeting moment of vulnerability, Mou An's sword descended like a gentle yet relentless rain, leaving several crimson marks upon Zhang Jiao's body and bringing the tempo entirely under his control. The 2 combatants traversed from the street to the alley, with Mou An's disheveled hair clinging to his forehead, indistinguishable as to whether it was sweat or rain. Zhang Jiao's face bore evident bloodstains, his breath growing increasingly labored, clearly nearing his limit. Both men panted, yet one was rhythmically composed while the other was chaotically disordered. The outcome was evident. Zhang Jiao knelt on the ground, his head bowed, obscuring his gaze. At what should have been the decisive moment, however, Mou An did not advance. Instead, he retreated a few steps, withdrawing from the battlefield. A contingent of over 50 individuals arrived from various directions, completely encircling the street. Exiting the fray, Mou An nodded slightly towards another approaching inspector, issuing his command. Release the arrows. As a rain of arrows fell, in the depths of despair, Zhang Jiu surged upwards from his kneeling position, blocking dozens of arrows, charging towards the two inspectors. Even in death, he sought to drag a few down with him. Mou An remained unmoved, while the newly arrived inspector, frightened, stepped back, hiding behind his subordinates. Continue, release the arrows. The futile struggle proved ineffectual. The moment Zhang Jiu was encircled by the soldiers, the outcome had already been sealed. After 3 volleys of arrows, his form collapsed, pierced by numerous shafts in his struggle. With great effort, the bloodied figure lifted his head, a sinister grin directed towards Mou An, his lips barely moving. Another volley of arrows rained down, one piercing directly into Zhang Jiu's forehead, silencing him completely. As the fallen figure lay covered in a multitude of arrows, motionless, the new inspector adjusted his robe, maintaining an impassive demeanor as he stood beside Mou and Lord Mou. Is this the notorious Bloodblade Zhang Jiu? Casting a glance at his colleague, Mou An refrained from derision, choosing instead to overlook his previous cowardice, and nodded slightly. Indeed, what Lord Wang stated is correct. The Bloodblade Zhang Jiu has been vanquished. Did the rascal have anything he wished to convey in his final moments? Gazing at the corpse on the ground, Mou An's brow furrowed slightly, his peripheral vision sweeping the houses lining the street. Before he spoke in a voice neither too loud nor too soft. No matter, merely the lament of a defeated dog in its last throes. Precisely indeed. In a world rife with chaos, bloodied garments rise. I await you in the underworld. Chapter 5. The Copper Lock. Has he discovered our presence? It seems unlikely. Shrouded in darkness and engaged in combat with others, there is no reason for him to notice us. How could such a formidable individual exist in a mere county town? Observing his youth, having just recently come of age, yet possessing such profound skill. With someone of this caliber here, our plans. We shall confer further upon my elder brother's return. Princess Yongning is journeying to her fief, flanked by guards of limited strength, while within Qing'an County resides a reclusive elder from the Medicine King Valley. Since her childhood, the princess has been frail and ailing, having sought renowned physicians across the world. She is bound to visit Qing'an County. The county magistrate is one of our own, presenting a rare opportunity, should we miss this chance. We must devise a plan to divert this young man. Without him, the remaining individuals pose little threat. No, this is insufficient. Merely diverting him is not secure. It would be preferable to find an opportunity to eliminate him altogether. The matter of the water spirit fungus cannot afford any missteps, with chaos looming. Those madmen act without regard for consequences. With my elder brother on the verge of a breakthrough, we, the Night Crow thieves, require a martial sage. Knock, knock, knock. The discussion abruptly ceased as a scholar, having resided in the county for several years, feigned surprise and opened the door. Outside, the soldiers tasked with calming the residents recognized the scholar and greeted him with smiles, engaging him in cheerful conversation. His child was still attending school. It was imperative to maintain a good rapport with the scholar, an opportunity not to be missed. Upon the criminal, 2 flying daggers, a dozen poisoned silver needles, 2 vials, and a token were discovered. Would you care to take a look? A token? The report from his subordinate caused Mou An's brow to furrow as he approached the right side of the corpse. The flying daggers and silver needles were anticipated. Such individuals from the martial world are invariably ruthless, and it is not surprising for them to conceal malicious items. But what of this token? Raising his gaze, he observed the token, which had piqued his curiosity, being scrutinized by another inspector present, who was unable to decipher its meaning. My Lord Mou, take a look at this token. It is quite peculiar, with intricate patterns, seemingly belonging to some grand organization. Accepting the token, Mou An squinted at the blood-red characters outlined in lacquer, examining it for a long while before feigning ignorance and returning it to Wang Chong. Lord Wang, with your extensive experience, have you ever encountered this token? Wang Chong, in his 40s, shook his head, his expression filled with confusion. However, his years of experience compelled him to grasp Mou An's hand and pull him aside, lowering his voice. Shaoan, do not act impulsively. This criminal is unlike any before. He is a skilled practitioner from the martial world, possessing both strength and status, intertwined with those prominent sections. This matter is of great significance. Whatever this token signifies, it is undoubtedly serious and clearly beyond our purview. Heed my advice and refrain from emulating your father by meddling in such chaotic affairs. Discard this matter and report it truthfully to the county city, allowing those above to handle it. The earnest counsel rendered Mou An silent for a moment, and he eventually nodded in agreement. Wang Chong, an old friend of Mou An's adoptive father, has watched Mou An grow up since childhood and has always taken care of him. Prior to Mou An taking over the position of inspector, the two referred to each other as uncle and nephew, reflecting on his adoptive father's past actions and the reputation he has cultivated. Mou An could surmise Wang Chong's thoughts, merely a belief that he would meddle in affairs that did not concern him. However, Mou An was not naive. He recognized the potential for great trouble and questioned why he would willingly approach such chaos. Noticing Mou An's open-mindedness, Wang Chong's mood visibly brightened. He patted Mou An on the shoulder and smiled, inviting him to dine at his home, mentioning how Xiao Wan often spoke of him, praising him, and even noting her newfound interest in embroidery. I will handle the matters concerning Captain Chun. I leave this in your capable hands, Uncle Wang. Mou An interjected politely as Wang Chong's words hinted at a touch of bitterness. People of this era often sought to matchmake those of similar backgrounds and ages. However, Mou An, with his broader perspective and immortal status, felt no inclination towards such trivial pursuits, deftly steering the conversation away. Wang Chong, eager to continue, hesitated, glancing at Mou An's retreating figure and the corpse at the street corner, swallowing his words and letting out a long sigh. He was indeed a pitiable soul, lacking in resources, now rendered an orphan amidst widows. Wang Chong had little connection to the deceased Chun who, and, being older, had no desire to witness the grim sight of the body. The world was harsh, with martial artists rampant, and such occurrences were far too common. The county's captains came and went, a perilous profession. Yet, as the deceased were not from the Lingang inspection office, Wang Chong preferred to remain uninvolved. In the corner of the street, Mou An paused, observing the soldiers lifting Chun whose corpse, lost in thought. His gaze narrowed as he fixated on the blood-stained copper lock discovered on Captain Chen's body, holding it in silence for a prolonged moment. Zhuang, take a few men, procure 30 taels of silver, and deliver them to Captain Chen's home. After a brief pause, as if struck by a sudden thought, he added, bring along extra men to ensure that Captain Chen's affairs are handled properly in the coming days. Inform the gangs that anyone who dares retaliate against Chun whose family will face my wrath. Understood. At Lin and Tang, Mou An placed his order as usual, requesting an additional prescription for tonics. The elderly physician, Lin Jiming, paused momentarily as he reached for the counter, casting a surprised glance at Mou An. You seem robust. With a strong pulse, you don't appear wounded. Could it be that you've been afflicted by some insidious poison? He extended his hand, ready to take Mou An's pulse. The old man's well-meaning concern caused Mou An's lips to twitch slightly, and he shook his head in exasperation. It's not for me. It's for the wife and daughter of a captain at the county office. They are suffering from some distress, likely due to excessive sorrow. So I thought to procure some medicine for them. The elderly physician at the counter, upon hearing the words, opened the medicine cabinet. Rather than selecting herbs suitable for women and children, he instead grabbed a handful of potent remedies. This is absurd. Without examining the patient, how can one prescribe indiscriminately? This would indeed trouble old Lin. Very well, I am aware of this matter. In the afternoon, I shall send my apprentice to take a look. Observing Mou An, who clearly had no intention of paying for the consultation, the old doctor let out a cold snort. Without weighing the ingredients, he casually scooped up 2 handfuls of herbs, placing them into a box and handing it to Mou An. Recently, there have been issues in Qishan. Many of the herbs you require are out of stock, and prices have soared. It would be best to substitute a few ingredients. Qishan, I have heard of it as well. There is a general in the prefecture who has rebelled, leading 1,000 soldiers into Qishan and directly ascending to the second seat among bandits. Indeed, Qishan is in turmoil. In recent days, many herbal gatherers have perished, making it difficult to procure medicinal materials. The grim news caused Mou An to stand at the counter, tapping his curled index finger lightly on the surface, producing a faint sound. The old doctor paid him no mind, engrossed in his own tasks. What about the price for the substitute herbs? Do not worry. What you are using is not some rare elixir, merely supplements that are easily replaceable. Then let us proceed with the substitution. The previous medicine was rather unpleasant to consume. The old doctor's lips twitched as he hesitated for a moment, then dismissed the herbs he had initially considered, opting instead for the most bitter herbs available. Unpleasant is good, this young man. He even has the audacity to be choosy. Let it be wretchedly bitter for him. Chapter 6. The linen hall. While his mind was preoccupied with schemes to manipulate others, the old physician's expression remained largely unchanged as he shifted the conversation to other matters. Regarding the illness you mentioned 3 days ago, I have investigated it. It is not a plague and poses no significant risk of widespread contagion, so there is no need for excessive concern. Compared to our last encounter, The health of those children has notably improved. That is reassuring. After preparing the herbs that Mou An required, the old physician rapped lightly on the table. His scrutinizing gaze fixed upon Mou An for an extended period until the latter felt a sense of discomfort, and the physician finally diverted his eyes. It seems there are several new faces in the city lately, all quite robust. It would be wise to avoid unnecessary outings. You should also attend to the pile of official duties you have accumulated. There are many whispers around town suggesting that you neglect your responsibilities in favor of accepting bribes from those factions. Rumors can be perilous, and this is not merely gossip. One must maintain a sense of moderation. No matter how many justifications you possess, it is imperative to exercise caution and discernment. Others may partake, and your capabilities may allow you to take more, but if matters escalate beyond control, none will emerge unscathed. Do not let these issues lead you to ruin. Upon hearing this, Mou An's hand, which had been sorting through the herbs, hesitated momentarily, suspended in midair, as his downcast eyes narrowed. Understood, he replied, comprehending the underlying implications in the old physician's words. Yet, while accepting the herbs, he leaned slightly to the side and whispered in a voice only audible to the two of them. How grave is the situation? There are 4 experts, all of top-tier caliber, and a lawless cult is also operating within the city. Wandering alone through the bustling streets, Mou An's demeanor remained largely unchanged. Lin Jiming, the proprietor of the Linen Hall, was an elderly physician who had long surpassed the age of 60 and held considerable esteem within Qing'an County, respected by the local populace. In this era marked by stark social stratification, it is indeed rare for a healer to treat each patient with equality. Moreover, the Linen Hall is known for its low fees, providing medical services and selling remedies at near-cost prices, endearing itself to the residents. Lin Jiming is also one of the few who is aware of Mou An's true lineage as the adopted son of Mu Ping. There were no convoluted circumstances. It was simply that Lin Jiming, having devoted a lifetime to the study of medicine, had long known of Mu Ping's inability to bear children. The lingering ailment from Mu Ping's youth was treated at the Linen Hall, and had it not been for Lin Jiming's presence, Mu Ping would likely never have witnessed Mou An's growth. In the eyes of the vast majority in the county, the old physician is a man of remarkable medical skill, known for his kindness and dedication to healing the sick. However, a select few understand that Lin Jiming's status is far from ordinary, and his abilities are quite formidable. To speak of the matter further, even the young apprentices at the Linen Hall are skilled martial artists, and several of the resident physicians possess profound inner strength, all being exceptional practitioners. Due to his frequent visits to acquire herbs, Mou An had ample opportunity to interact with Lin Jiming, who made no effort to conceal his capabilities, allowing Mou An to glean insights into the physician's true nature. Consequently, Mou An often took the liberty of visiting the medical establishment, acquiring much of the knowledge he sought, including basic swordsmanship, boxing techniques, and lightness skills, all of which he learned from this source. As for why Lin Jiming held such high regard for himself, Mou An had always believed it stemmed from his extraordinary talents. After all, the old physician had repeatedly hinted to Mou An about his willingness to take him as a disciple. It wasn't until Mou An reached the age of 16, surpassing Lin Jiming in prowess and attaining a level of mastery befitting the top ranks of the martial realm, that the notion of apprenticeship was definitively shelved. The two shared an unspoken understanding. Lin Jiming never inquired about the origins of Mou An's martial techniques, and Mou An refrained from questioning Lin Jiming's true identity. They communicated directly about their needs and assistance, with Mou An overseeing the business of Lin and Tang, while Lin Jiming provided valuable intelligence from the world of martial arts. The official identity Lin Jiming possessed proved advantageous in certain situations, and over the years, with Mou An's support, Lin and Tang had reaped considerable benefits. However, Lin Jiming, being benevolent, often extended help to those unable to afford medical care, thereby dissipating some of these advantages. Although their lives were not impoverished, they were certainly not affluent either. It is no exaggeration to say that had it not been for Mou An's annual orders of medicinal herbs, Lin and Tang would have long ceased operations. From the moment they first met at the tender age of 12, 8 years had passed in a blink, a rare sort of oblivion. In Mou An's eyes, the old physician's martial prowess was rather pedestrian, but since a healer does not excel in martial arts, Mou An would not underestimate his elder. Even now, Mou An's progress in cultivation was not hidden from Lin Jiming, who possessed remarkable discernment. The simultaneous appearance of 4 top-tier masters in a small county, coupled with the blood-red token discovered on the bloodthirsty Zhang Jiao, had already set Mou An's mind racing with calculations. Secluding himself from visitors, he sought to cultivate his character and maintain composure. Once the chaos subsided, he would continue to endure, for such is the essence of survival. Candied hawthorns. sweet and sour candied hawthorns. The vendor's calls jolted Mou An from his reverie as he glanced toward the street. Wang Laojiu, the seller of candied hawthorns, had seemingly encountered some trouble at home recently, and he had not been seen for quite some time. Master Mou, would you like 2 skewers of candied hawthorns? They are quite delectable. Make it 8 skewers. Certainly. As you are a valued customer, I shall gift you 2 skewers. You need only pay for 6. Not wishing to refuse the vendor's kindness, Mou An accepted the candied hawthorns and walked towards the end of the street. After crossing a street and walking approximately 200 or 300 meters, he finally halted before a small courtyard. Just as he stood still, the sounds of children calling out echoed from within. A few children, the eldest no more than 7 or 8 years old, burst through the door and raced toward Mou An. In response, he slightly sidestepped and gently pressed down on the most exuberant girl, placing his hand atop her head, prompting her to pout in apparent discontent. Xiaohuan, here are your candied hawthorns. Share them with your younger siblings. The girl, named Xiaohuan, pouted, but her eyes brightened at the sight of the candied hawthorns. She eagerly accepted them and darted back inside. Only after distributing the candied hawthorns to the other 4 eager children did Xiaohuan suddenly recall something. She turned to Mou An with a hint of unease in her expression. In response, Mou An merely waved the remaining 3 skewers of candied hawthorns in his hand. Upon witnessing this scene, the girl finally breathed a sigh of relief, delicately nibbling on the candied hawthorn in her hand, her lively eyes brimming with joy. Children are invariably drawn to sweet delights, yet being dependent on others necessitates a certain understanding. They cannot desire what the adults lack. They must not become a burden to Lord Mou. As the elder sister, it is her duty to ensure her younger siblings, who are still oblivious, are well taken care of. For the forthcoming month, they are to remain here, venturing out sparingly by day and not at all by night. Should they require anything, they are to inform those assigned to look after them. Do you understand? Mou An's words left the children perplexed, yet as orphans, they were acutely aware of how challenging survival could be. The frail little ones nodded obediently, retreating behind the eldest, Xiaohuan, as they endeavored to muster a smile for Mou An. The instinct of childhood allowed them to faintly sense the ominous aura surrounding Mou An, and they felt a flicker of fear at the proximity. However, Sister Xiaohuan repeatedly urged them to behave sweetly and sensibly before Lord Mou, to smile, and to obey. They must follow Lord Mou's instructions without fail, ensuring that he experiences no inconvenience. Compared to their previous lives of begging on the streets, the care provided by the patrol officers has vastly improved their circumstances. Having tasted this new way of life, reverting to their former existence would be exceedingly daunting. Should they be abandoned by the patrol, a grim fate awaits them. The children's forced smiles did not escape Mou An's notice. He chose to remain silent, perceiving their struggles as invisible. For these children, there must be something they can do, perhaps to evoke a smile, or engage in some other endeavor. If they were rendered utterly helpless, their fears would only deepen. Fears of abandonment, fears of becoming superfluous, fears of potential conspiracies. For those who have endured relentless suffering, exchanging sincerity for sincerity is a daunting task, often fraught with failure and requiring an inordinate amount of time. Mou An was not inclined to entertain such thoughts. Chapter 7. Days of digging at the mass grave. From the outset, Mou An made it clear to the children that they would be working for the Inspection Bureau in return for their upbringing. This exchange of equals was the epitome of fairness. As for the future, Mou An was indifferent. Once these children matured, the Bureau would cease its support. Ultimately, they would have to rely on their own efforts. Their destinies were theirs to forge. Qingshan County could be deemed stable. Yet merely surviving was not a daunting task for those with limbs. Granting these children the opportunity to grow up normally was the greatest mercy Mou An could extend. The funds for these children did not originate from Mou An's own pocket, but rather from the protection fees bestowed upon him by the gang. In this era, the existence of such organizations bore its own significance. As a local power broker, accepting the gang's financial contributions was a customary practice. Although he harbored no fondness for this tainted wealth, he recognized that if he refrained from taking it, others would readily seize the opportunity. Relying solely on the meager salary provided by the court, few would be willing to toil relentlessly. In a murky world, aspiring to remain unsullied amidst the filth was a Herculean task, akin to courting death. Mou An did not perceive himself as possessing the ability or background to maintain unblemished integrity alone. Thus, he chose to engage in the fray, seizing control of the broader situation. By adhering to the rules, he could also dictate the manner in which these funds were utilized. The children here, including the widows of men like Chun Hu and those struggling to survive, were beneficiaries of the Anshan Inspection Bureau's assistance. Lacking the power to alter their environment, They sought the best possible choices within their existing circumstances. As for his own life, Mou An was not boasting. He was indeed quite affluent and held little regard for trifling wealth. Although the technology of this era was not primitive, glass, soap pots, and gunpowder had long been in existence, Mou An, leveraging his memories, had managed to amass substantial assets through the influence of the Mou family and the Bureau. The adage wealth in literature, power and martial prowess rang true, as Mou An's progress was undeniably intertwined with this fortune. After exchanging a few words with Zhao Pe, who cared for the orphans, Mou An departed the room, leaving the children with a mixture of nostalgia and trepidation. The children sat together, exchanging glances, their faces betraying an inexplicable tension despite savoring their candied hawthorns. Sister Xiaowan, did we just anger Lord Mou? They pondered. The sweets were delightful, yet the children felt a disquiet within. The casual remarks and playful banter of adults, along with shifts in tone, could loom large in the eyes of self-conscious children. The palpable anxiety among the youngsters did not escape Lin Huan, the eldest among them. Her limited understanding made it challenging to grasp Mou An's intentions, leaving her to speculate as best she could. There were indeed many kind-hearted individuals in the county, but the officials were certainly not among them. Minor matters might be addressed by the county's constables, yet significant issues were beyond their purview. This was wisdom imparted to her by her parents before their demise. Officials and gangs were two sides of the same coin. In the absence of conflicting interests, one might encounter no issues and may even greet one another with smiles. However, once conflicts of interest arise, the officials do not hesitate to resort to various unscrupulous means. These evidently biased words were deeply etched in Lin Huan's heart. Her 6 months of begging further solidified her belief in this perspective. To Lin Huan, the seemingly amiable Lord Mou was not much better. Yet, as long as she could survive, she was willing to pay any price. Clutching the sugar-coated hawthorn in her hand, the 8-year-old girl shook her head vigorously. She must grasp the lifeline. The cost could be dealt with later. For now, survival was paramount. It was already quite satisfactory. Next time, a brighter smile would be even better, as Lord Mou enjoyed seeing them smile and appreciated their little gifts. The adults advised them to stay indoors, so they complied. They were obedient. Who would dare to cause trouble? Otherwise, my sister would not hesitate to teach them a lesson. The little girl endeavored to mimic an adult's angry demeanor, muttering to herself while shaking her clenched fists. Yet, her feigned ferocity lacked any real intimidation, appearing somewhat comical to the adults. A few smaller children were indeed frightened, nodding obediently and raising their small hands to reassure Lin Huan. Their exchange caught Mou An's attention from outside the courtyard, and he could not help but chuckle. How considerate, yet am I truly that intimidating? Mou An dismissed the children's thoughts. Qing'an County was undoubtedly one of the safest places among the counties he had visited. At the very least, it was far superior in safety compared to several neighboring counties. The officials might be slightly corrupt, but they could hardly be deemed malicious. In essence, everyone was an ordinary person who, upon wielding a modicum of power, might occasionally misuse it, yet none had completely trampled upon their moral boundaries. It could even be said that those who frequently committed wrongdoings might still experience fleeting moments of kindness. A piece of steamed bun, a bowl of thin porridge, and a few leftover scraps. These beggar children survived as a result of such kindness. This was the nature of the times and the human condition, which could be understood. As for those who had entirely crossed the line, Mou An remained silent, merely digging in the potter's field. The new home was splendid, square, and filled with earthen blocks. It seemed everyone was quite fond of it. Mou An honed his craft, and those who had crossed the line found a new abode. It was a mutual delight. 8 skewers of sugar-coated hawthorn were distributed, 5 to the 5 children, 2 to the maidservants at home, and the last skewer was devoured by Mou An himself. The sweet and sour taste was not particularly exceptional. In the gradually fading memories, Mou An recalled his fondness for sugar-coated hawthorn, yet now he felt indifferent towards it, merely maintaining the habit of purchasing them. Perhaps it was due to a change of body or the inferior quality of the sugar-coated hawthorn here, which paled in comparison to the variety of his past life. Mou An did not ponder over the reason. Instead, he gazed up at the starry sky, admiring the full moon above. Standing alone in the pavilion, Mou An warmed a cup of yellow wine and indulged in solitary drinking under the moonlight. A piece of intelligence and a hand-drawn map lay illuminated by the moonlight on the table. After a considerable time, the cup was empty, and the figure rose. With a hand raised above the head, the gaze wandered, peering through the spaces between the fingers to behold the shimmering river of stars. The bloodstained garments, the night crows, the princess. How outrageous it is to entertain thoughts of the royal family. A method must be devised to disseminate the news of the Bloodgarment sect. The princess must not be allowed to arrive in Qing'an County. What is amiss? It has been 10 days, yet the inspector surnamed Mou remains unaddressed. Second brother. That fellow stays cooped up in the inspection office every day, never venturing out. With over 100 men guarding him, we cannot find an opportunity. Within the dimly lit room, a robust middle-aged man slammed his palm onto the table, causing it to tremble and liquid to splatter. Never venturing out? How can that be? Q Ingi, could it be that we have been exposed? The woman known as Q Ingi furrowed her brow, her hesitation evident. There is a possibility, after all, that young man possesses profound skills at such a tender age, far from ordinary. It would not be surprising if he discovered our presence. What does Chow Min say? Is he not the county magistrate? Let him concoct a reason to divert the individual. That is unwise. Qing'an County is located at the juncture of land and water, its circumstances differing from those of ordinary counties. The local clan powers are formidable. The Mou, Wang, and Li families are intricately intertwined, their influence permeating every aspect of this county, each capable of summoning hundreds of local warriors with ease. The 3 inspection offices are robust and well-armed, feigning compliance, rendering the magistrate's orders ineffective. Chapter 8. The Night Raven Thief. Observing the hesitant expression on the beautiful woman's face, the burly middle-aged man, Ming Shan, who ranked second, let out a cold snort and regained his composure. What do you wish to say? After a brief moment of contemplation, Su Qingyu glanced at the individuals present and spoke softly. Based on the intelligence gathered over the past few days, that Mou An is indeed a rare and commendable official. He suppresses gangs, adopts orphans, and provides relief to the impoverished. Many in this county have benefited from his kindness. In times of impending chaos, forming a connection with such a person could prove to be a fortuitous endeavor. The small room fell silent, the flickering candlelight casting the shadows of 4 figures upon the wall. After a prolonged stillness, a robust voice unexpectedly broke the quietude. Sister Wu speaks wisely. Since the turmoil in the Eastern Palace 3 years ago, the state of the world has become treacherous and unpredictable. Several princes harbor ulterior motives, and the 3 major demonic sects wreak havoc across the land. It is evident to any discerning individual that the Great Qi is on the brink of chaos. Should the old emperor pass away, the situation will spiral into an uncontrollable abyss. During such times, rather than creating unnecessary enemies, it is prudent to cultivate more friendships. As the shadowy figure appeared, the expressions of those present fluctuated between pale and flushed, yet they remained silent. The Night Raven Thief organization, centered around a congenital master and 4 first-rate experts, shared a deep bond, but differing opinions were inevitable. The leader, Ming Hai, the second-in-command Ming Shan, the third Wang Jinling, the 4th Li Qian, and the 5th Su Qingyu. Ordinarily, as the elder brother, Ming Hai's words would quell further dissent from the others. However, the atmosphere this time was palpably different. Ming Shan, intent on eliminating all unstable factors, sat at the table without uttering a word. Su Qingyu, who believed they should abandon their course of action, leaned against the wall, her gaze lowered. It was not until the evening breeze wafted through the window, causing the candlelight to waver, that Ming Shan finally lifted his head, fixing his gaze upon the speaker. Elder brother, the Anshan Inspection Office has numerous soldiers trained in martial arts, though few have cultivated true qi. Nevertheless, they are well-equipped and robust, being locals of Qing'an County, familiar with the terrain. This undoubtedly poses a significant obstacle to our plans. However, the opportunity is rare. Once Princess Yongning departs the county and reaches Yongning Prefecture, the chance to seize the spiritual herbs may never arise again. As he spoke, Ming Shan's voice faltered, revealing a hint of agitation. Let us not forget that there are many who wish for our demise. Had we not concealed our strength, allowing the court to mistakenly perceive the Night Raven Thief as merely a third-rate power, we would have long been souls claimed by the Dark Feather Guards. In chaotic times, only absolute strength can ensure our survival. If Elder Brother can ascend to the rank of martial sage, it will grant us leverage to partake in this turbulent era. Casting a glance at his younger brother and then at the remaining 3, Ming Hai nodded slightly. I understand what you are saying, but... Noticing the collective gaze upon him, Ming Hai retrieved a blood-red token from his bosom and slammed it onto the table. The crimson patterns glowed in the candlelight, as if poised to devour all, causing the eyes of those present to widen in astonishment, fixated on the small token. Mou An, the inspector, may be a notable figure. Yet in this particular affair, he does not pose a genuine challenge. The Bloodrobe sect. The moment the talisman was revealed, a collective gasp of astonishment reverberated through the air. I have received word that 30 li away, in the county town, there are signs of activity from the Bloodrobe sect, and they seem to be orchestrating a rather substantial operation. Damn it! How could that deranged group have arrived? The two individuals who had remained silent also changed their expressions. Li Qian, who had been bowing his head, gently waved his feather fan and looked up at Ming Hai. Brother, do you have any knowledge of how many members of the Bloodrobe sect have come? Unknown, came the reply. But there are rumors that the sect's guardians will be participating in this endeavor. Casting a glance at Ming Hai and then at the now quiet Ming Shan, Li Qian, the strategist of the Night Crow Thieves, rendered his judgment. A withered camel is larger than a horse. Despite the turmoil within the court, it remains a colossal entity. The information we can acquire is surely more comprehensive within the court's grasp. If the Bloodrobe sect's plans have been uncovered, then the vicinity of Princess Yongning is likely a veritable den of danger. Rather than risking everything, it would be prudent to observe the developments before seeking an opportunity. As for Mou An, I believe it would be wise to test the waters. Should he be persuaded to lend his assistance, our endeavor to procure the spirit fungus would undoubtedly be greatly enhanced. In Changchun City, at the Feihua Yashuan, a hurried maid dismounted the carriage, traversed the narrow path, and passed through the archway to a garden filled with the fragrance of blooming flowers. At the end of the cobblestone path, a young woman reclined in a rattan chair, gently swaying with its motion. The one leaning against the chair appeared languid, cradling a cup of tea and sipping delicately. Whether it was the brilliance of the sun or the vibrancy of the flowers, the occupant of the pavilion seemed somewhat haggard, her complexion exhibiting an unusual pallor. A jade hairpin was carelessly thrust into her hair, which was casually styled, revealing her as a striking beauty, yet appearing somewhat disheveled. Her long, flowing sleeves of an ethereal gown trailed on the ground, gathering a hint of dust. As a member of the royal family, such a demeanor undoubtedly contravened the decorum expected of nobility. However, the surrounding maids and matrons remained silent, doing their utmost to blend into the corners, avoiding the princess's gaze. It is well known that the ninth princess, Jun Yunxin, is the daughter of the empress and the most favored offspring of the current emperor. Due to her frail health since childhood, the emperor has lavished her with exceptional care. He has even gone so far as to dismiss her instructors and eliminate palace maids without reproach. Months prior, on her 17th birthday, the emperor conferred the title of Yongning County upon her as a fief, along with the 3,000 Tiger Bend troops stationed around the county, marking her as a recipient of unparalleled imperial favor. The attendants who remained by the side of the princess were all obedient and understanding, and naturally, none would dare to speak ill of her. Upon noticing someone intrude into the small courtyard, Jun Yunxin merely lifted her gaze for a moment. After discerning the identity of the visitor, she redirected her attention to the table, casually picking up a delicate pastry. Your Highness, Lord Liu of the Shadow Guard has conveyed that he has located the esteemed physician you sought. Upon your arrival at Qing'an County, the doctor shall be summoned to pay his respects. It is illogical to burden a healer with such travel. Elder Lin, renowned in the Valley of Medicinal Kings, is an exceptional physician. It is only fitting that I pay him a visit. Your Highness speaks too highly for a mere apothecary. To meet a princess is indeed a stroke of fortune. The individual seated upon the rattan chair, perhaps having indulged too liberally in pastries, found his throat parched. Sipping tea intermittently, yet he refrained from acknowledging the flattery. It was not until the maidservant's knees began to ache from kneeling that a gentle voice finally escaped his lips. Are your knees pained? Thank you for your concern, Your Highness, but Leonine feels no discomfort. Then remain kneeling. This unorthodox response momentarily startled the maidservant, tightening her heart as her head bowed ever lower, almost making contact with the ground. Within the brief span of a quarter hour, myriad possibilities raced through her mind, and beads of perspiration surfaced on her brow. Ignoring the trembling maidservant, Jun Yunxin picked up a handkerchief to dab at the corner of his mouth. To eradicate the roots of a problem is a directive from my elder brother. Though I harbor no fondness for bloodshed, I understand well that in many instances, this sentiment holds considerable truth. A phrase that might seem obscure to others plunged the maidservant, kneeling on the ground, into a state of despair. Despite it being April, she felt an unbearable chill envelop her, as if the very essence of cold had seeped into her bones. Speak, to whom have you sold my information? Perhaps if I am in good spirits, I may spare your family. Your Highness, Leonine has not. Chapter 9. Explanation is concealment the same question. I do not wish to inquire a second time. Jun Yunxin's voice remained gentle, soft, and pliable, akin to a maiden's endearing whine, yet to Lien Yin's ears it resonated like a fatal melody, piercing her eardrums with agony. Your Highness, spare me. It was the Bloodrobe sect who captured Lien Yin's family. I truly did not intend to betray you. Take her away. Interrogate her thoroughly. I demand to know the current situation in Qing'an County within a day. Yes, Your Highness. Your Highness, spare me. Your Highness, we have already sent a team to Lien Yin's homeland as per your instructions. Her mother is still alive, but her father and younger brother were found deceased at the hands of the Blood-Robe sect. Have arrangements been made for the compensation? In response to your Highness, following past practices, we shall publicly declare that Lien Yin succumbed to a chill, and 200 taels of silver have been delivered to her mother. At the very least, she served me for 8 years. Grant her a dignified passing in the night. I understand. Wait a moment. Does your Highness have further commands? Seated at the table, Princess Yongning's eyes curved as if in laughter, yet her voice carried an imperceptible chill. Utilize carrier pigeons and swift horses for communication. One letter shall be sent via pigeon to General Bai stationed outside Yongning County, instructing him to rally his troops for support. Another shall be dispatched on horseback to the county office in Qingyan, informing them of the Blood-Robe sect's insurrection. Understood. In the 27th year of Chengtai, on the 28th day of April, do you know what the princess looks like? My old man says the emperor is the son of heaven. Thus his daughter must be a celestial being. Do celestial beings not need to eat, sleep, or even relieve themselves? What nonsense. Are they still human? The daughter of a deity is naturally divine. How could she be like us mere mortals? Bang, bang, bang. Shut up, all of you. Whoever dares to speak out of turn again, I will personally deal with them. With 3 resounding thuds, accompanied by the sounds of fists colliding with heads, Mou An erupted in a long overdue expletive. For a fleeting moment, he was tempted to deliver a kick to each of these fools. Yet, upon reflection that these were his own men, whom he would need to pay to mend if injured, his eager foot retreated. Nonetheless, the dark lines etched upon his face and the somber expression were sufficient to convey his current sentiments. Had he truly labored to elevate the cultural standards of the patrol office only to find it all in vain? A pack of imbeciles, utterly incompetent. Had they paid even a modicum of attention during his lectures, they would not utter such foolishness. Even dogs possess more intelligence than this gaggle of dolts. Not even a physical education teacher could produce such dim-witted students. To impart knowledge to them is more challenging than taking their lives. With such an attitude, they still dare to concern themselves with their children's education? And what of the peculiar Princess Yongning? Has she nothing better to do than meddle in affairs of a small county? Despite having dispatched numerous spies to gather intelligence, upon discovering those spies, Mou An had even specifically instructed his trusted aides to relay the news of the disturbances in Qingyan County to them. He has discreetly disseminated information about both the blood-clothed sect and the night crow thieves, all in an effort to heighten the princess's vigilance and dissuade her from traveling to Qingyan County. To his astonishment, this seemingly misguided princess still intends to come. Knowing full well the dangers that lie ahead, she chooses to march towards them. Is there something extraordinary about this small county? Should anything untoward occur, who would bear the consequences? It is utterly absurd. Mou An finds himself in a state of considerable discontent, deeply irked. The capricious princess poses a grave threat to his tranquil existence, yet he is compelled to cooperate with her. Qingyan County falls under the jurisdiction of Yongning Prefecture, which is the fiefdom of this princess, who appears to lack sound judgment. In other words, this Yongning princess will soon become his superior. The ruthless criminals of the blood-clothed sect have likely been plotting for an extensive period and must have gathered substantial intelligence. The fact that they still intend to wreak havoc in Qingyan County suggests they perceive a viable opportunity. It is illogical for these nefarious individuals to engage in a battle they are certain to lose. Should any misfortune befall the Yongning princess in Qingyan County, not a single official, great or small, would evade the fallout. At that point, Mou An would have no recourse but to flee into the mountains. Gripping the hair of his subordinate, he listened to the chaotic cries of his men, gradually regaining his composure. The Mou family's commerce thrives across the vast landscape of Lingzhou, relying not merely on theoretical discussions, but on tangible abilities. In the realm of Deqi, one cannot succeed in business without a modicum of skill. With so many guards employed by the trading house, it is high time for them to take action. Qingyan County, abundant in mountains and waters, is ripe for sowing the seeds of conflict. Perhaps influenced by childhood experiences, Mou An has long suffered from a fear of inadequacy in power. Without cultivating other forces and training his soldiers, he feels an overwhelming discomfort. What if he encounters a cult? What if rebels attack? What if the county magistrate goes mad? What if the dynasty crumbles? Preparations must be thorough. He must ensure that, in extreme circumstances, he possesses the capability to confront a 1,000-strong elite force. However, considering the situation from the perspective of the Yongning princess, if she were to discover a family wielding such formidable military power within her fief, she would undoubtedly be unable to enjoy her meals or find rest. Faced with such a predicament, she would certainly seek reasons to consolidate the Mou family's influence firmly within her grasp. dare to defy her? Very well, let them explain that to the king of hell. With a heart as dark as his own, the royal princess's intentions would undoubtedly be even more sinister. After a logical deduction, Mou An surreptitiously reached a conclusion. An alliance is essential. Yongning Prefecture is the princess's domain. Thus, the Mou family has effectively been branded with her mark. Aligning with the princess is undoubtedly the wisest course of action. How to proceed is a matter for the elder of the Mou family. It bears little relevance to him. Mou An, his sole responsibility is to ensure the security of Qing'an County to the best of his ability. The Yongning princess has been journeying from the capital to this point for nearly 2 months. The absence of incidents during this extended period indicates that her escort is undoubtedly formidable. Knowing that there are ambushes laid in Qing'an County, one must have made appropriate preparations, even intentionally presenting oneself as bait to lure those enemies who wish her harm. Thus, the task at hand becomes remarkably straightforward. One must ascertain the hiding places of the Blood Garment sect's disciples in advance and collect as much information as possible. With a calculated mind, Mou An forcefully struck the table thrice, and once all the soldiers fell silent, he began to outline the crucial points of attention. Listen closely. This operation will be conducted jointly by the 3 inspection offices and the county government. We have received explicit intelligence indicating that bandits have been active in the county town, harboring nefarious intentions. Form into groups of 10 and conduct thorough searches, house by house. Spare not a single one. Capture all those rebels hiding within the county town. He reiterated the detailed requirements for the search 3 times, ensuring that all participating guards echoed his words before he felt a semblance of reassurance. The meal was practically served, and surely this group of imbeciles could not afford to create further complications, could they? Bah, bah, bah. Flagging in disarray. Chapter 10. Open the door. The inspectors bring warmth. Bang, bang, bang. Open the door. The inspectors bring warmth. I shall count to 10. Open the door at once. 10, 9, 3, 2, 2, 1. Lin, 2 and 2 are the same number. You've miscounted again. Lord Mou has declared that if you cannot learn to count, you will be sent to the children's school to study alongside those little brats. Before a casino under the auspices of the mountain gang, Lin Ping glared fiercely at his subordinate, who was only slightly better at arithmetic. How dare you bring up such matters? Looking for a beating, are you? The inspectors operate in teams of 5, and as the esteemed captain, overseeing 25 soldiers, surely I can discern the difference between 2 and 2. Wang Lu, go run 10 laps around the training ground. At Lin Ping's side, Wang Li's face fell at this news, his previous glee vanishing. What a disaster. Having received a few praises from Lord Mou, he had momentarily forgotten that the petty Lin Ping was his captain. For 3 years in the east, 3 years in the west, do not underestimate the youth and poverty. You scoundrel Lin Ping, I, Wang Lu, am a soldier favored by Lord Mou. One day I shall ride atop your head. When I rise to power, I shall make you run 20 laps around the training ground daily. In a moment of reverie, Wang Lu felt a surge of anger rise within him. Emboldened and reckless, he kicked the casino's door with fervor. Damn it, these rascals of the mountain gang truly have the audacity. Lin, you completed your counting in 10 seconds, yet still refused to open the door. Clearly, you do not regard us inspectors with any respect. With a tremendous crash, the wooden door flew open, splintering upon impact with the ground, sending shards flying and producing a sharp sound. As the dust settled, several rigid smiles became visible behind the door. Brother Lin, Brother Wang, what is the meaning of this? Is there something about this month's tribute that displeases Lord Mou? If it is insufficient, merely let us know. There is no need for such theatrics. Preposterous. Who do you think you are, brother? We inspectors engage in legitimate business. When have we ever accepted your tribute? Lin Ping stood firm, his demeanor exuding authority, causing Zhao Si, a minor leader of the mountain gang, to twitch nervously, as if his long-dormant mind were attacking him. Look at this. Is this the manner of speech one should adopt? Ever since that scoundrel Mou An became inspector, the conduct of the Anshan inspectors has grown increasingly peculiar. Words cannot be spoken plainly, and money cannot be taken directly. They insist on convoluted procedures, masking them as business transactions. The very essence of their dealings remains unchanged, merely dressed up in fine language, claiming a bottle of watered-down wine as a masterfully crafted brew. Clearly, they have merely increased the protection fees while altering their form. And yet, these court hounds of the Anshan inspectors parade about, sheltering beggars and aiding the lonely, all while presenting a facade of righteousness. Do not think for a moment that Zhao Si is unaware. The money they contribute ultimately fills the pockets of those rascally inspectors, engaging in similar activities as before, yet cloaked in pretentiousness, has brought misfortune upon their gang as well. They are unwilling to undertake this task, nor that one, and sporadically engage in some sort of sweep operations. This has led to the small leaders of their supporting gang becoming increasingly agitated, pondering daily how to communicate with these ostentatious intellectuals. Zhao Si, drenched in spittle, felt a surge of anger rising within him. In a fit of rage, he lowered his head and rubbed his hands nervously as he approached Lin Ping. Indeed, my little brother spoke out of turn. He deserved a beating. It was not that Zhao Si was cowardly. Rather, they had finally secured a powerful ally, recognizing the infamous Blood Robe sect as their elder brother. According to the gang leader, a grand scheme was being orchestrated by the prominent figures of the Blood Robe sect. Once successful, they too could ascend to positions of power. With such a significant undertaking on the horizon, it was unwise to quibble with this pack of rabid dogs. It was certainly not because those 20-odd gleaming knives were particularly intimidating. Standing on the splintered wooden door, Lin Ping cast a cold laugh at Zhao Si, who wore a fawning expression. Deserving a beating? The derisive tone sent a shiver down Zhao Si's spine, a chilling dread coursing through his limbs. In an impulsive act of self-inflicted punishment, he slapped his own face twice, causing a ringing in his ears and his head to tilt away. My little brother deserves a beating, indeed. Colluding with traitors. I see not just a beating in your future, but death. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a powerful kick struck him, sending waves of agony radiating from his abdomen. Zhao Si's vision darkened as he crumpled to the ground. Search thoroughly. Leave no corner unchecked. Lord Mou has decreed, there is no mercy for the resistant. Similar scenes unfolded across the streets and alleys of Qing'an County, as squads of fully armed soldiers stormed the known hideouts of the Blood Robe sect, conducting extensive searches. 500 armored soldiers, alongside 1,000 local militia, mobilized to encircle Qing'an County completely. Among the primary targets were the supporting gang and the Linshui gang, with 3 inspection offices working in tandem with the county magistrate to launch a concerted assault. Even 4 crossbow carts were deployed. All accomplices were apprehended, while any resistors were deemed traitors and executed on the spot. To ensure the safety of Qing'an County, Inspectors Mou An, Wang Chong, and Li Yu convened with the county magistrate and deputy magistrate. With resolute determination, they decided to eliminate both gangs that were poised to ally with the Blood Robe sect. Better to err on the side of caution, they resolved, than to let any slip through. They must demonstrate unwavering loyalty to Princess Yongning. Loyalty is non-negotiable. It is absolute. As the foremost county under the governance of Princess Yongning, Qing'an County must yield tangible results. Both gangs had long engaged in nefarious activities, extorting men and oppressing women, engaging in usury and human trafficking, leaving a trail of victims behind. Particularly notorious was the supporting gang, which, bolstered by its connections, had committed all manner of misdeeds, subtly positioning itself as the dominant gang in Qing'an County. While not every member was a villain, at least half certainly warranted execution. Mou An had long harbored disdain for the supporting gang, but due to its location in the eastern district of the county, a good 20 miles away from Anshan, it had never presented him with an opportunity to take action. Taking advantage of Princess Yongning's visit, Mou An personally led a group and executed the leader of the Kaoshan gang, eliminating all opposition both inside and out. He successfully apprehended 7 or 8 spies from the Blood Robe sect. Unfortunately, each of these sect members resisted fiercely, relying on their martial prowess to fight back valiantly. With no choice but to act decisively, Mou An wielded his sword, cutting through them with relentless precision, until he had eradicated every last one of these malevolent forces. As for the powerful backing of the Kaoshan gang, Mou An confidently declared that with the arrival of Princess Yongning, the sun of Yongning County shone brightly, rendering any so-called support insignificant, destined to turn to ashes under the brilliance of that great light. This resolve was not merely a result of the elder of the Mou family informing Mou An 2 days prior that his uncle, Mou Ming, the head of the Mou family and a high-ranking official in the capital, had pledged allegiance to the faction of the Third Prince. The Third Prince and Princess Yongning were siblings, born of the late Empress. The elder, with scant hairs remaining on his head, repeatedly urged Mou An to muster his courage and not shy away from the task at hand. Ensuring the safety of Princess Yongning was of paramount importance. Any threat must be eliminated, and even if mistakes were made, the entire Mou family would support him in the aftermath. Reluctantly, the kind-hearted Mou An found himself compelled to take more drastic measures. Chapter 11. Those who frequently take lives understand sighing in despair as he gazed upon the blood that stained the ground of the mountain-backed gang. And inhaling the acrid scent that permeated the air, Mou An could hardly bear to look. Such cruelty. He resolved to visit the mass grave tomorrow to dig a grave. And afterward, to pay homage at Ling'an Temple to cleanse himself of this malevolent aura. Those who frequently take lives are well aware that after committing murder, one ought to visit a temple, purifying their blades with the clear water from the wishing pool. The Buddha has proclaimed that by laying down the butcher's knife, one can attain Buddhahood instantly. Mou An, with genuine reverence for the divine, was also of a kind heart, unwilling to allow these corpses to rot in the wilderness. After taking a life, he even took it upon himself to dig a grave, ensuring these bodies could rest in peace, thereby securing a favorable position in the underworld. In these times, land prices have soared. The earlier one buys, the more advantageous it is, first come, first served. Miss the opportunity, and one might find themselves laboring in the underworld for a century or more. Regardless of how one views it, such actions are immeasurable merits, destined for longevity and perhaps even ascendance to immortality. As for the question of laying down the butcher's knife, it was of little concern. 3 years prior, he had abandoned the knife entirely and now wielded a sword. In a nameless alley on West Street, in a shadowy corner where sunlight failed to reach, a boy of approximately 11 or 12 lay slumped in the deepest recess. His name was Chin, or perhaps he had no name at all, for he was simply the second child in his family. His elder brother had passed away young, and his younger sister had been sold at the age of 6 to serve as a maid for a wealthy family, purportedly to accompany a young lady. About half a year ago, Chin's father, drowning in gambling debts, accidentally killed his mother in a drunken stupor, resulting in the mountain-backed gang seizing their home. Ultimately, his father was cast into the river, likely to become a mere skeleton in its depths. Chin felt little sorrow at his father's death. Rather, he had been contemplating vengeance for his mother even without the gang's involvement. The atrocities committed by the mountain-backed gang had inadvertently aided him in his quest for retribution. What truly saddened Chin was the fact that the gang had taken all that could be sold from his home, including their dwelling. Due to his father's debts, he too found himself targeted by the gang, and no one was willing to employ him as a laborer. Seeking assistance from the authorities never crossed his mind. He knew that officials were of the same ilk, lacking any virtue. Moreover, he had heard whispers that the mountain-backed gang had powerful connections, with ties to the provincial government, and had branches throughout Lingzhou. Chin did not comprehend the nuances of local power dynamics or the struggle between imperial and local authorities. But he understood that the province overshadowed the county, and he was far from being a contender. With nothing to his name, Chin wandered the streets alone, spending countless lonely nights leaning against the cold walls, consuming steamed buns obtained from the linen hall. The old physician at Linen Hall was perhaps the kindest soul in the county. Whenever Chin fell ill, with nowhere else to turn, he instinctively made his way to Linen Hall. The old physician, never turning him away, would treat his ailments and even prepare a temporary place for him to stay until he recovered, occasionally inviting him to work at Linen Hall. Yet, Chin declined the old man's kindness, expressing his desire to survive on his own, embodying the spirit of a true man. Later, the elderly physician suggested that he might try his luck at the Anshan inspection office, where the inspector was a commendable individual who might champion his cause. Chin merely smiled, echoing the physician's words with a few agreeable remarks. An aged physician and an ordinary inspector. How could they dare to offend the powerful Kuaishan gang? It would be a disservice to such benevolent souls. In the small world perceived by the youth, the Kuaishan gang loomed as the greatest villain, invincible and formidable. Half a year passed in a meandering fashion. Although life was arduous, Chin managed to endure. The physician even praised him, calling him ambitious and a true man of valor. Yet, only Chin was privy to the harshness of his existence. Members of the Kuaishan gang would occasionally trouble him, seizing the few copper coins he had painstakingly acquired. Strangely, they never struck him in the face. Each blow was directed at areas concealed by clothing. In moments of assault, Chin contemplated seeking help from the physician, but upon reflecting on the gang's cruelty and the physician's kindness, he would retreat, hiding away in the shadows. A rat scurried from the corner, emitting a squeaking sound directed at Chin. He should have, as usual, huddled closer, guarding the unwanted scraps he scavenged from the tavern. Yet today, something compelled him to rise abruptly, his gaunt fists clenched, veins protruding like angry serpents. He heard it, the sound of pleading emanating from the street. A familiar voice that had haunted his nightmares, repeatedly jolting him from sleep. The Kuaishan gang was begging for mercy, a desperate, hoarse plea for reprieve. Without a moment's hesitation, Chin dashed into the street, fixating on the gang's hideout. A figure clad in official garb was drenched in blood, trampling the gang's insignia, appearing immense beneath the slanting rays of the setting sun. Those who once instilled fear in him, akin to ferocious tigers, now lay lifeless upon the ground. while the surviving wretches crawled in abject defeat, akin to lost hounds. Fixated on the direction of the Quaishan gang, Chen Er recalled a conversation he had overheard just 2 days prior. Have you heard? An extraordinary figure is coming to our Qing'an County. I know. Princess Yongning, the emperor's favored daughter. The entire Yongning prefecture is her domain. I heard she is kind-hearted, close to the common folk, often advocating for them, and treats her servants with utmost respect. They say she can hardly bear to see gangs bully the weak and act tyrannically. Who knows? Perhaps the gangs in town will soon face eradication. Indeed, my uncle, who serves in the county office, mentioned that they are already planning to cleanse the city of gangs. Let me share some inside information, but you mustn't let it slip. Brother, you know me. My lips are sealed. I have a reputation for discretion across the countryside. I heard from my uncle that Princess Yongning will seek out orphans to train them as her guards. I wonder if anyone from our Qing'an County will catch her eye. Goodness, to be a guard of the princess would be to ascend to greatness. Indeed, I deliberately traveled to the Linggu Temple, 100 miles away, to procure a string of Buddhist beads for my child. The master proclaimed that wearing these beads would attract the favor of noble patrons, which is truly remarkable. The sound gradually diminished until it vanished entirely. In the midst of the silence, Chen Er seemed to faintly hear the sound of something falling to the ground. Driven by an inexplicable force, he approached the source of the noise, where a bead lay on the floor, captivating all of Chen Er's attention. It was the size of a walnut, made of an unrecognizable wood, imbued with the unique fragrance of the temple. The moment he spotted the bead, his heart raced, and he swiftly picked it up, concealing it in his bosom, before cautiously surveying his surroundings. Only after confirming that no one had witnessed his actions did he retreat into the corner, covering himself with a straw mat. Chapter 12. The grave pit is still too shallow. Returning to the present, Chen Er gazed at the fragmented remnants of the Kaoshan gang, his eyes drifting to the flamboyant figure before its entrance. For reasons unbeknownst to him, memories of tales recounted by his mother in his youth surfaced. In those stories, protagonists, after enduring trials and tribulations, would inevitably encounter fortuitous opportunities, ascending to the stature of great figures. The arrival of Princess Yongning had eclipsed the entirety of his world. The Kaoshan gang was no more, yet he had now acquired a transformative Buddhist bead. It seemed extraordinary. Perhaps he too could emerge as the protagonist of a tale. With eager anticipation, the young boy fixed his gaze upon Mou An, clenching his fists, resolutely vowing to himself, I shall become an even more formidable figure. I will return home in splendor and repay the old physician's kindness. Before the entrance of the Kaoshan gang, Mou An, sensing Chen Er's gaze, turned slightly to observe the corner of the street. Upon recognizing Chen Er's frail silhouette, he casually retrieved a handful of silver from the gang's storeroom and entrusted it to his subordinate. Go, give this money to that young lad over there, and tell him the Kaoshan gang has ceased to exist. He should live well from now on. For 3 consecutive days, the county office and the inspection bureau collaborated in a unified effort. The patrolling soldiers and constables worked tirelessly, slaying 26 members of the blood-robe sect and apprehending 3, all of whom were incarcerated for interrogation. Numerous criminals were also swept up in this endeavor, either meeting their demise on the spot or being taken into custody. In the span of just 3 days, the once empty jail teemed with inmates, necessitating the release of some with lesser charges to make room. In an instant, the atmosphere in Qing'an County was rife with trepidation among the various gangs, fearful of being branded as traitors and unwittingly imprisoned. At the Tongfu Tavern, the air crackled with anger. That wretched Chao Min, that bastard Qin Hao, taking advantage of the crackdown on traitors to suppress dissenters. They've obliterated my Iron Sand gang. Inside the elegantly adorned private room, Li He of the Anyang Inspection Bureau downed a glass of liquor, venting his frustrations towards Mou An and Wang Chong. Do you think I am unaware if my gang has colluded with the Bloodrobe sect? They are all fine sons of the Li family. Even if someone has committed a rogue act, what does it have to do with that Chao Min? Mou An remained silent, leaning against the couch and quietly sipping his drink. This matter bore no relevance to him. The Mou family operated a legitimate business without harboring a gang. While not entirely pristine, at least they could not be faulted on the surface. The Anshan Inspection Bureau, too, focused solely on selling liquor, refraining from meddling in gang operations, ensuring equal punishment for any transgressions. Their motto was fairness. In this operation, Chao Min had not targeted the Mou family's influence. Ironically, even Wang Chong, who maintained a good rapport with Mou An, was caught in the crossfire, as a gang under the Wang family's control also had numerous members apprehended. As Wang Chong drowned his sorrows in drink, he echoed the sentiments against Chao Min, unleashing a torrent of curses. That Chao character harbors ill intentions. It's one thing to oppose us in normal times, but to seize this opportunity to undermine our forces is utterly contemptible. Having barely exchanged a few words, Wang Chong raised his cup and downed the liquor in one swift motion. As the liquid barely slid down his throat, the cup collided with the table, producing a resounding clatter. One incident leads to another. Once the surname Chow tasted sweetness, he would only become more audacious. Our three families would suffer if we do not devise a plan to expel this Chow and replace him with a more compliant county magistrate. As he vented his frustrations, his cheeks flushed crimson, and the scent of alcohol enveloped him. He turned to Mou An and said, "Xiao Mu, your intellect is sharp, and your martial prowess commendable. What is your perspective?" Caught off guard by Wang Chong's sudden inquiry, Mou An reluctantly set down his cup and regarded the two men at the table. He was well aware of the factions nurtured by the Li and Wang families. While they were hardly paragons of virtue, they maintained certain boundaries and could not be deemed utterly irredeemable. More akin to shadowy operatives, they occasionally dealt with matters that were best left out of the public eye. The Mou family's business also engaged in similar undertakings, but under Mou An's leadership, it had increasingly opted to resolve issues through the laws of the court. Violence was hardly the answer. After all, we are all civilized beings. If matters could be settled through official channels, why resort to methods that might expose one to incrimination? When necessary, fabricating a couple of detectives would not pose a significant challenge. The intricacies of the situation were far too convoluted to generalize. "Uncle Wang, you have indulged too much. Our immediate priority is to eradicate the traitorous bandits and ensure the safety of Princess Yongning during her visit. Let us set aside other matters for the time being." Although Wang Chong did not concur with this diplomatic overture, he was well aware of Mou An's temperament and chose not to press further. His young nephew was different from them. He had inherited Mu Ping's disposition, unable to tolerate excessive corruption. Mou An turned a blind eye to minor transgressions, yet should anyone endeavor to ruin lives entirely, he would not hesitate to mobilize soldiers for retribution that very night. Since Mu Ping's demise, the Anshan inspectorate had taken on a completely different visage. Inundated with lofty rhetoric daily, concepts of justice, such as an eye for an eye and leave a thread of mercy, were incessantly paraded, alongside absurd notions that minor theft did not constitute greed, and that the soil of a mass grave was of excellent quality. It was not just the members of the two families who would be buried in the mass grave if matters escalated. Even the Mou family would find themselves entangled in the same fate. Such ruthlessness was palpable. In his inebriated state, Wang Chong waved his hand dismissively and urged Mou An to drink once more. "Enough talk. Let us drink. Drink. Let me tell you about your father. Back in the day, the sessions of heavy drinking seemed interminable, interspersed with various grievances, extending from dusk until the deep of night, evolving from a gathering of 3 men to a lively assembly of 7 or 8 companions." Mou An absorbed both the hearable and the unhearable, diligently noting down Wang Chong's words during his indulgent escapades. Perhaps it was due to the proximity in age between Mou An and Wang Chong's daughter, Wang Wan, coupled with the absence of a maternal figure during his upbringing, that the matron of the Wang family treated him as her own. She often thought of him when there were delicacies to share, and Mou An held her in high regard. Wang Chong had the audacity to indulge in frivolities before him, and this warranted a complaint. "What? You say Mou An indulged as well? What nonsense! Was he drinking for pleasure? He was merely appreciating art. Does one not comprehend the 6 arts of a gentleman? Furthermore, what harm is there in an unencumbered man enjoying a little music? The gentleman adheres to propriety." With Mou An present and pressing matters to attend to on the morrow, the exchange of sentiments remained merely a fleeting touch. At the stroke of midnight, Mou An observed the soldiers of the Lingang Inspection Division escorting the inebriated Wang Chong into a carriage, followed by the departure of several individuals from the Anyang Inspection Division. He then splashed cold water on his face. As his spiritual energy circulated, the scent of alcohol dissipated entirely, along with the flush upon his cheeks. With his mind restored to clarity, Mou An gazed toward the direction where the carriage had vanished, his eyes narrowing slightly. Under the flickering candlelight, the night in the small town appeared particularly desolate. A storm was imminent. In the span of 3 days, the armed forces of Qing'an County had been mobilized, yet they had only dealt with lowly minions, the strongest among them mere third-rate warriors. The true elite of the blood-clad sect had eluded detection, their whereabouts a mystery. The Night Crow thieves, whose positions had long been pinpointed by the Inspection Division, had also executed a remarkable vanishing act, an oddity indeed. Perhaps among these individuals were those skilled in concealment, yet such talents are rare in the martial world. It is far more plausible that someone has hidden them away. Throughout this search, there were scarcely any residences within Qing'an County that the Inspection Division dared to intrude upon. Who could it be? County Magistrate Chao Min. County Lieutenant Qin Hao, the Li family, the Wang family, gently caressing the hilt of his sword. A glimmer of cold light flickered in Mou An's eyes. The grave at the unmarked burial site had been dug too shallow. Chapter 13. No Hope, awaiting death on the 1st of May, at the Hall of Linen. A faint scent of incense wafted through the gentle breeze, tickling the nose of Princess Yongning, who sat by the window, her chin resting in her hands, lost in thought. The fragrance in the room bore a resemblance to that which clung to her, yet it possessed subtle distinctions. The flowers outside were exquisite, likely planted by someone with a deep appreciation for life. However, their sparse presence rendered the scene somewhat solitary. The princess had been in this state of reverie for quite some time, long enough for her delicate features to be tinged with a hint of melancholy. From Lin Jibin's perspective, the princess's fair back was adorned with a multitude of silver needles, densely packed, a sight that was both unsettling and evoked a sense of pity. "Lin, how fares my condition?" The question was as direct as ever, yet it did not elicit an immediate response. Similar inquiries had been made countless times before, so many that Jun Yunxin herself had lost count, and gradually, she had ceased to harbor any hope. She was acutely aware that her days were numbered. Gazing at the sunlight outside and feeling the vigor unique to early summer, she appeared remarkably serene, merely lifting her nose slightly, leaning against the windowsill, allowing the sun to bathe her. After 5 decades of practicing medicine and having perused innumerable medical texts, it was the first time Lin Jibin encountered a patient in such a predicament. It could be said that had she not been a noble princess, she would have perished long ago, unable to endure until this moment. Even as a princess, her continued existence was a miracle, a testament to the collective efforts of many eminent healers. To speak of the peculiar scent emanating from the sachet she carried, it was crafted by his senior sister from the Valley of the Medicine King. That familiar aroma had often reached his senses during his time there, a favorite formulation of his sister in her youth. The simplicity of the question caused Lin Jibin to furrow his brows, leaving him unable to respond for an extended period. "There's no hope, await death. It's not worth treating," was the conclusion that first sprang to his mind, but the patient was the Emperor's cherished Yongning princess. Indeed, her beloved status was evident, for otherwise, such an abundance of precious spiritual materials would not have been devoted to her care. To declare her fate as awaiting death was out of the question. Otherwise, the princess might still be alive, yet he, the old man, would meet his demise first. The royal family was not particularly fond of rational discourse. Lin Jibin need not concern himself. Yunxin was well aware of her own condition, and she desired nothing more than the truth. After much hesitation, he finally spoke in the gentlest tone possible, aiming to minimize distress. The princess's health was sustained by spiritual materials, yet it continued to deteriorate. Maintaining her current state was already a miracle. As a humble commoner with limited knowledge, I truly do not know how to cure it fundamentally. But perhaps there are some methods for mere regulation. Having likely heard similar sentiments countless times, Jun Yunxin's expression remained unchanged. She simply raised her hand gently to grasp a petal carried by the wind. "How shall we regulate it?" Utilizing wood and water elemental spiritual materials as the foundation, supplemented by the secret techniques of the Valley of the Medicine King, should provide the princess with some relief. "Are there many needles embedded? Is surgical intervention necessary?" The voice of the person by the window remained soft, yet it carried a barely perceptible tension. Observing the princess, who was evidently attempting to maintain her composure, Lin Jibin could not help but find it somewhat amusing. It was clear that her fear of pain was merely a reflection of Jun Yunxin's last vestige of stubbornness as a princess. With Lin Jibin's keen eye, he could discern that this princess had been raised amidst medicinal concoctions, having likely endured various treatments throughout her life. The methods employed by the Valley of the Medicine King might appear daunting to the average person. Not to mention, that insufferable lad surnamed Mou was utterly ungrateful. Although he was aiding in her physical rehabilitation, expelling toxins and unblocking meridians, that boy foolishly insisted that he would rather die than accept treatment, claiming that merely witnessing the approach to his ailment had miraculously healed him. It was simply ludicrous. A man, a true gentleman, afraid of receiving treatment. It was merely a matter of enduring 128 needles over the span of 5 breaths. Yes, the needles were somewhat closely spaced, resulting in a slightly greater flow of blood, covering half of the back. What a trivial concern. That was merely stagnant blood. Could it possibly be compared to normal blood? The princess need not worry. Focusing on pharmacology, 1 needle per month would suffice. Understanding that the princess was not like ordinary folk, Lin Jibin carefully moderated his words. Unlike his more forthright discourse with Mou An, the treatment plan he chose leaned towards gentleness, primarily pharmacological, with supplementary methods. Having practiced medicine for many years, He was adept at soothing patients. Treating this princess as if she were a child would be most effective, just as Lin Jiming had anticipated. Upon hearing that surgery was unnecessary, the previously troubled Jun Yun visibly brightened, revealing the first smile of the day, her voice becoming much more buoyant. The prospect of transitioning from receiving injections every 7 days to once a month was indeed a stroke of fortune. Yet, would it be painful? Adding a bit of sugar to the concocted medicine could alleviate the bitterness. Would it be effective? If the supply of spiritual herbs could be ensured, living another 3 to 5 years would be entirely feasible. 3 to 5 years. Truly? Her voice rose several octaves, no longer steady, infused with joy and excitement, even tinged with tremors. Lin Jiming, the esteemed physician, must not deceive this princess. He should speak candidly. Gazing into the eyes of Jun Yunxin, who had moved from the window to stand before him, fixating intently on him, Lin Jiming maintained his gaze, his aged eyes meeting hers. 3 years would pose no problem. With proper care, 5 years could also be possible. Excellent, excellent. Lin, the divine physician, truly lives up to his reputation as the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine King. To have come here upon the words of your valley master is indeed a stroke of luck for Yunxin. Before he could finish his sentence, Jun Yunxin had tightly grasped Lin Jiming's hand, her address shifting from physician to divine physician, her delicate hand shaking his fervently, utterly shedding her previous decorum. Divine physician Lin, ask for anything you desire. As long as it grants Yunxin a few more years of life, I am willing to meet any condition. In a matter of moments, Lin Jiming had discerned who had foisted this considerable trouble upon him, disrupting his tranquility. It was likely that his valley master's senior sister had grown weary of the court's troubles and, knowing of his research into relevant pathologies, had thrust this ailing princess into his care. Despite harboring a tinge of discontent towards his senior sister's actions, Lin Jiming did not allow it to manifest, maintaining his original smile. A patient is a patient, and a senior sister is a senior sister. These are two distinct matters. Were he to find himself in the same position, he would undoubtedly act in a similar manner. Each field has its own expertise, and the leader of the Medicine King Valley is not necessarily the most skilled practitioner. Moreover, in the realm of medicine, one cannot simply compare skills in a binary manner. Each elder in the Medicine King Valley possesses their own specialized area of medical expertise, with strengths and weaknesses unique to each. The congenital ailment afflicting Princess Yongning is precisely the area Lin Jiming had once studied. Indeed, when he first embarked on this research, he was merely 17 years old, a time of youthful vigor and restless spirit. The ability to focus and delve deeply into his studies stemmed from his desire to assist his senior sister, a severe congenital heart disease, an affliction deemed incurable by conventional means. In his youth, he devoted a decade to overcoming this formidable challenge, ultimately rescuing his senior sister from the grasp of death. Chapter 14. The practice of medicine cannot save the world, only one person, while one may save 100 lives. Lin Jiming is unworthy to be a physician, nor does he deserve to remain in the Valley of the Medicine King. The elders of his sect, out of nostalgia, refrained from expelling him, yet Lin Jiming could not overcome his own inner turmoil and chose to leave the valley. Even after more than 30 years of wandering the world, saving countless lives, the shadow in his heart remains. Decades have passed, and the valley still preserves a place for him. His senior sister has urged him several times to return, yet he has never set foot in his former home again. Reflecting on his time in the valley, Lin Jiming let out a deep sigh. Lin, the divine healer, if there are troubles, do not fret. If it is within Yunxin's ability, feel free to express your needs. The hopeful voice of a princess brought Lin Jiming back from his reverie. She sat by the window, her countenance radiant with expectation. As thoughts flowed through his mind, Lin Jiming recalled many matters, ultimately lingering on his exchange with Mou An from half a month prior. Compared to ordinary medicinal herbs, the pursuit of martial arts truly necessitates authentic spiritual materials. Shallow waters cannot nurture a true dragon. Young Mou possesses remarkable talent and innate gifts. Without the aid of spiritual materials, he has honed his skills, while aiding the weak and impoverished. He also comprehends the order of the world and knows how to leverage rules to achieve greater goals. Such a talent should thrive on a grander stage, rescuing even more lives. He has aged, and his practice of medicine cannot save the world. Yet Mou An is still young. Perhaps one day, he may wield his influence to save countless lives. When that time comes, he may repay some of the debts incurred in his earlier years. Your Highness, I have a junior whose character and aptitude are commendable. However, he is hindered by a lack of resources, making his path in martial arts arduous. If possible, I hope you can lend your support. Meanwhile, 300 meters east of the county office, the Chow residence. 5 individuals disguised as servants gathered in solemnity. Eldest brother. The princess's carriage has arrived in the western city, stopping at the linen hall, seemingly in search of medical assistance. If we are to act, now is the opportune moment. Something feels amiss. Princess Yongning is frail and always travels with royal physicians. Why would she linger in an obscure clinic? The physicians within Linen Hall must be extraordinary. We should not act recklessly. What fourth brother says is quite valid. The 3 inspection offices have nearly 1,000 local valiant souls congregated in the city, and those inspectors seem to have committed some error, capturing anyone they suspect. They disregard evidence entirely. Any hint of doubt leads to immediate arrests. Although not imprisoned, being restricted in movement is exceedingly troublesome. Aside from us 5, all other brothers have gone missing. We must not act rashly. Eldest brother. I suggest we postpone our plans and observe the situation. Let the Blood Cloak sect test the waters regarding Princess Yongning's capabilities. Agreed. Guardian. The scout who infiltrated near Princess Yongning has returned with news. The princess's convoy has been stationary at Linen Hall for a full hour. Linen Hall? The protector is unaware that within the depths of Linen Hall resides an elderly physician surnamed Lin, who arrived in Qing'an County 8 years ago. His medical prowess is unmatched, having cured numerous ailments deemed terminal, earning him the esteemed title of miraculous healer across a 100-mile radius. In the secluded recesses of the Li family ancestral home, a venerable elder with silvery hair stands respectfully beneath a tree, slightly bowed, as he reports the intelligence gathered over recent days to a man seated in a rattan chair. The man, appearing to be in his 20s and adorned with a jade flute at his waist, squints slightly, gazing at the lush foliage above. Where has the Tiger Ben army reached? Respectfully reporting, the Tiger Ben army has arrived within 40 miles of the city and will be able to enter within half a day. Upon hearing this, the man in the rattan chair leaps to the branches of the ancient tree. Sunlight filters through the leaves, casting shadows deep within the courtyard. We cannot delay. Action must be taken within the city. The roads are not yet sealed, allowing for concealed weapons among the populace for a swift assassination. What the Li family can do? Please instruct, Protector. The man on the tree shakes his head and speaks in a calm tone. The imperial court holds great power, regardless of success or failure. This endeavor is a certain death trap. Aside from myself, no one in the sect will escape this county alive. To be frank, I am uncertain who the fool was that devised this plan, sending the disciples to their demise. But I can surmise it is merely an excuse of sacrificing a few for a greater cause. All disciples who have come to this county are treated as pawns, which is regrettable. Fortunately, your Li family is not deeply entwined with the holy sect. Only you and your son have joined. I shall erase any traces of your family's connection with the sect, leaving you a glimmer of hope. Before he could finish, Li Ku, the previous head of the Li family, had already bent low, filled with trepidation. The Li family is willing to sacrifice everything for the holy sect. Suddenly interrupted, Ling Xiao Sanren appears momentarily taken aback, yet he does not express anger, merely observing Li Ku, whose face is nearly touching the ground. In my view, rather than senselessly courting death, you would do better to await the opportune moment to exert greater influence in the future. The elder beneath the tree kneels in reverence, prostrating himself 9 times, blood trickling from his aged forehead and staining the parched earth. I am willing to offer all for the great cause of the holy sect, to uphold the promise made 40 years ago, and to clear the path of all enemies before my master. As chaos reigns and bloodshed rises, Ling Xiaosen Ren, perched upon the branches, inexplicably shivers, staring at the devoutly earnest Li Ku, lost in thought for a considerable time. He yearns to articulate something but finds himself at a loss for words. Ultimately, he simply sighs, his figure entwined with the shadows of the tree, vanishing in the sunlight. Madness. All of it is madness. In Qing'an County, West City, there is no need for further farewells, Elder Lin. The items you seek will be delivered by Yunxin within half a month. The 5 plants of the 5 elements will arrive at the pharmacy. I am deeply grateful. Your Highness, may you enjoy good health and be free from the torment of illness. Before Linen Hall, Jun Yunxin, with a beaming smile, gently assists Lin Jiming to his feet. There is no need for excessive formality. I entrust the matter of Yunxin's ailment to you, Lin. I kindly request that you commence your research at your earliest convenience. In accordance with your Highness's directive, I shall devote my utmost efforts to serve you. The exchange of pleasantries did not linger for long, as observed from Mou An's perspective. His immediate superior engaged in conversation with the venerable Lin for no more than a brief quarter of an hour before boarding the carriage. At this moment, the ailing princess sat within the slowly moving carriage, graciously waving to the onlooking citizens, presenting a truly approachable demeanor. clad in a simple gown. Her long hair cascading down to her waist, her complexion appeared exceedingly pale, exuding an air of frailty. The sunlight poured down upon the princess, illuminating her with a perfect beauty that rendered her even more exquisite, and coupled with her gentle features, it evoked a profound sense of compassion. Chapter 15. A family of four. Time and tranquility. Standing atop the tavern, Mou An gazed into the distance, approximately 500 meters from the linen hall, his eyes fixed on the direction of the approaching carriage. The entire western city lay beneath his watchful gaze. He touched his chest, even without consciously listening. He was acutely aware of his heart racing, a chill coiling around his heart like a venomous serpent. Someone formidable had set their sights on him. As the carriage moved forward slowly, the crowd grew increasingly animated. In a county like Qingyan, news spread with remarkable swiftness. Perhaps due to the monotony of life, or perhaps because of their innate curiosity, people of all ages eagerly gathered to witness the spectacle. For the common folk, the princess's entourage was undoubtedly a rare and captivating sight. The throng of people swelled along the streets, extending to the eastern city gate, blocking the thoroughfares with their congestion. Observing the crowd that filled the streets, Mou An furrowed his brow, suppressing the rising chill within him, and beckoned to his deputy, Yunyang. The princess's carriage was still 3 miles from the city gate, and a contingent of 400 guards was stationed outside. If the rebels intended to act, this would be their final opportunity. Take 50 men and find a way to disperse the crowd. Aim for civility, avoid violence, and reason with them, Mou An instructed. Yunyang's hand trembled around his dagger, his smile peculiar, tinged with an unusual excitement. Rest assured, sir, our patrol brothers excel at reasoning. Disregarding his deputy's musings, Mou An stood composed on the rooftop, maintaining his earlier posture as if he perceived nothing amiss. Thump, thump, thump. His heartbeat accelerated, soaring from 50 beats per minute to a staggering 400. Blood surged, igniting his body, as his spiritual energy coursed rapidly within, tinting the vibrant crimson blood with a faint azure glow. An overwhelming sword intent enveloped Mou An, ready to unleash its lethal force at any moment under the stimulation of his spiritual power. Within a residence 300 meters from the tavern, a couple and their 2 children lay tenderly placed on their bed. Their 1.5-year-old daughter nestled in the center, her slightly older brother cradling her, while the father held their daughter and the mother embraced their son. If one could overlook the blood scattered across the floor and the terror in the little girl's eyes, it would truly resemble a serene tableau of life. Not long ago, the Lingxiao wanderer from the Li family stood at the bedside, gently caressing the girl's cheek. Do not cry, your parents are merely asleep. If you weep, they will never awaken. The 1.5-year-old child, oblivious to the world's complexities and the concept of life and death, felt an instinctive fear, prompting her to cry out. The child's wails echoed starkly in the silent room, causing the smile on the Lingxiao wanderer's face to vanish. As the cries intensified, he gazed at the girl for 10 seconds, his expression shifting several times before settling into an extreme gentleness. Like a doting father, he carefully wiped the tears from her eyes. Little Linger, be good, do not cry, do not cry. The soothing voice possessed an almost enchanting quality. In mere moments, the girl who had been weeping inconsolably was now nestled in her brother's embrace, peacefully asleep. Observing her serene slumber, Lingxiao Sanren's smile deepened as he leaned down to bestow a gentle kiss upon her forehead. After this tender gesture, he casually pulled out a piece of drawing paper, and with a few deft strokes, an image strikingly resembling himself emerged on the canvas. He gazed at his creation for a while, nodding in satisfaction, before placing the artwork beside the sleeping girl and whispering softly, "Little Linger, remember this. When you grow up, be sure to seek out your teacher." In her slumber, the child seemed to instinctively sense a hint of malice, causing her to shiver involuntarily. The tremor of her small frame tugged at Lingxiao Sanren's heartstrings, prompting him to soften his touch until a sweet smile graced the girl's face. How wonderful! Little Linger must be dreaming a beautiful dream. The teacher has other matters to attend to, so I shall not stay with you. Having spoken to himself, Lingxiao Sanren cast a disdainful glance at the lifeless couple on the bed, deliberately avoiding the bloodstains on the floor. He approached the window, surveying the figures in the tavern below. His heart raced, blood surged through his veins, and the intent of his sword remained unexpressed. At such a young age, he had already brushed the edges of innate potential, a true prodigy, destined to serve our holy sect. Meanwhile, in the tavern, Mou An suddenly turned his head, his eyes shimmering with a ghostly light, fixated on Lingxiao Sanren. Caught off guard by the intense gaze, Lingxiao Sanren remained unperturbed. Instead, he clapped his hands in admiration. What keen instincts! Such a fear of death in this young man. Marvelous. Marvelous indeed. How fortunate that Qing'an County boasts such remarkable individuals. His appreciative gaze swept over Mou An from head to toe, finally settling on the third floor of the tavern. There, 30 elite merchants, having cultivated their inner strength, stood with swords and blades at the ready, guarding various corners of the establishment. For powerful crossbows were positioned behind the windows, their cold arrows poised for action. Additionally, 8 individuals lurked atop the beams, armed with poisoned projectiles, prepared to deliver lethal strikes at a moment's notice. Below them, 50 armored soldiers from the inspection division stood vigil throughout the premises, ready to form a phalanx and dispatch any intruder on the spot. As their eyes met through the papered window, Ling Xiao Sanren smiled and waved his jade flute at Mou An. Without waiting for a response, he tucked the flute back at his waist and, under Mou An's watchful gaze, swaggered out of the door. On the tavern's rooftop, cold sweat silently drenched Mou An's back. He exhaled a long breath, watching the figure disappear into the residential area. The heavenly martial sage. In the western city streets, amidst the bustling crowd, Chen Er bowed his head, gripping his Buddhist beads tightly. Despite the cacophony surrounding him, he heard nothing, his mind consumed by a conversation he had overheard days prior. The Princess Yongning actively sought out orphans to train as her personal guards, and he wondered if anyone from Qing'an County might catch her eye. To be a princess's guard would be akin to ascending to the heavens. His hands and feet trembled, and his consciousness became somewhat hazy. In that moment, Chen Er felt as though he was the sole inhabitant of the world, with only the slowly advancing carriage before him. In a daze, he broke free from the crowd and knelt before the carriage. At the instant he knelt, a profound silence enveloped the throng. Every gaze turned towards him, and the sound of swords unsheathing echoed through the street. Yet, Chen Er, kneeling on the ground, noticed nothing. He could neither see nor hear clearly. He was only aware that the princess, who was willing to take in orphans as her guards, stood right before him. He merely knew that he had shouted the words he had practiced for days. "Your Highness, I wish to be your guard and dedicate my entire life to you." His voice faltered, and aside from its volume, there was nothing commendable about it. It lacked propriety, did not adhere to decorum, and failed to exhibit the valor expected, revealing no trace worthy of admiration. Chapter 16. The Void, the Explosion, the End. Yet, Chen Er, kneeling upon the ground, remained oblivious. After uttering the words he had practiced for days, his world transformed into an abyss of emptiness, devoid of all else. An unprecedented tension seized his heart, as the blank-minded youth awaited his final judgment. Within the ancient, elegantly adorned carriage, Jun Yunxin too heard Chen Er's desperate pleas. Under ordinary circumstances, encountering such a brave youth would have intrigued her, and she would have been inclined to grant him an opportunity. For these beggars, a modicum of respect could elicit their unwavering loyalty. However, today, she chose not to intervene. Instead, she tenderly rubbed her forehead and sighed softly to her attendant beside her. The members of the Blood Garment sect truly resembled a horde of rats from the sewers. The attendant, half kneeling beside Jun Yunxin, remained silent. She merely rose slightly, seated herself behind Jun Yunxin, and cautiously began to massage the aching temples of her mistress. Everyone should remain vigilant, observing what methods these filthy rats might employ. After a brief silence, whispers began to circulate through the streets. Who is this beggar? He seems somewhat familiar. He appears to be the child from the Old Chen family on North Street. Old Chen, is he not the one who gambled himself to death? The same Chen Go who was drowned by the mountain gang? This child has suffered the destruction of his family at the hands of the mountain gang, ultimately reduced to begging on the streets. A pitiable fate indeed. Old Wang, with this child obstructing the carriage, do you think he might be cut down as a thief? The murmurs escalated in the streets, while the soldiers stationed before the carriage remained motionless, their scrutinizing gazes fixed on the kneeling boy. 1 second, 2 seconds. Time passed slowly, and as the carriage remained silent, Chen Er eventually became aware of the gravity of his actions. His once blank mind regained clarity. A cold breeze swept through, whisking away the sweat that clung to him, bringing a refreshing chill. Awakening from his daze, Chen Er bit down on his bleeding lips and slowly rose to his feet. He should have been rejected, yet the princess seemed to harbor no ill will towards him. Despite not receiving a response to his greatest hope, Chen Er realized that he was not engulfed in sorrow. Rather, a hollow feeling settled within him, leaving his thoughts somewhat disordered. Indeed, how could an ordinary beggar ever be valued by a princess of such lofty stature? He had long since accepted this truth. At this juncture, he ought to perform a bow. For having obstructed the princess's carriage, it would be inappropriate to remain completely unacknowledged. With this thought, Chen Er summoned every ounce of strength within him, trembling as he stood upright. The moment he straightened his back, a blinding red light consumed his entire vision. The world spun uncontrollably, an acrid scent flooded his nostrils, and a searing pain overwhelmed him, only to vanish in an instant. Boom! Flames shot skyward. Shockwaves roiled through the air, and in that moment of explosion, the youth on the street was torn asunder, blood gushing forth with the force of the blast, staining the cobblestones red. Bang! 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 Smoke enveloped the street, piercing screams echoed relentlessly. Murder! In the midst of chaos, a brilliant flash of sword light vanished in an instant, and a bloodied head soared high into the air. The gruesome scene elicited a chorus of screams, causing the onlookers to scatter in haste. Assassins from the blood-robe sect, moving against the tide of fleeing crowds, swiftly occupied the high ground on either side of the street, their predatory gazes fixated on the carriage at the center. It seemed that both parties regarded the bystanders as mere obstructions, showing no intention to intervene, allowing the panicked masses to disperse freely. Only those frantically seeking escape charged toward the convoy, racing toward the unidentified members of the blood-robe sect. Some were mercilessly struck down by the sect's members, while others fell victim to the vigilant guards. Centered around the carriage where Jun Yunshin resided, the armored guards promptly raised their shields, forming a protective circle around the vehicle. In that fleeting moment, taking advantage of the ensuing turmoil, for guards fell lifelessly, their presence extinguished. Before the corpses, a scholar-clad man casually tore off his Confucian robe, licking the blood from the blade of his sword, disdainfully remarking, "Only 4 killed. What a pity." 3 meters away, a captivating woman shed her outer robe, revealing a red dress adorned with flame patterns. Her sword hung at her side, fresh blood dripping from its tip, staining the cobblestones a deep brown. No matter. The Tiger Ben army will take at least an hour to enter the city. Even if the vanguard arrives, it will be no less than half an hour. Ample time for me to claim that charming little face. The two engaged in their conversation, showing no regard for the guards stationed outside the city. With unwavering intensity, the commander of the Imperial Guards, Xu Yong, advanced wielding his sword, bellowing with authority, "Kuaying Dao Lingma, Hufing Shan Huahu, you treacherous rebels dare to assault the princess's carriage. Such crimes warrant the annihilation of your entire clan. Withdraw at once, and the princess, in her mercy, may yet show leniency." His feeble threats had no effect. Kuaying Dao Lingma licked the blood from his blade clean, his head twisting 120 degrees, his icy gaze sweeping over the military formation. The alluring woman known as Huahu raised her robe, gently caressing her cheek, her countenance radiating a sickly allure. Having long heard of Princess Yongning's celestial beauty, she envied her visage dearly. Commander Su, perhaps unaware, did not grasp that to achieve perfection with this human mask, one must first extract it from the living. Once a life is lost, the quality of the mask diminishes. A face of ordinary beauty would suffice, yet a gem like the princess's must not be squandered. It was worth noting that she had brought with her a life-preserving potion, fearing that the frail little princess might perish before too long. Such a lovely face brought her great delight. Impudent thief. Before Huahu could finish her words, Xu Yong, in a fit of rage, swung his great sword toward her. Clang! The clash of blade and sword echoed sharply, the reverberating sword energy and blade aura splattering outward, leaving deep scars upon the ground. Inside the carriage, Jun Yunshin listened intently, yet she displayed no sign of fear, merely lowering her gaze slightly, leaving others uncertain of her thoughts. However, the maid Linli, standing to the side, underwent a dramatic change in expression, her terrified gaze frequently darting towards her mistress. It was over. The woman outside was finished. As the personal attendant of Princess Yongning, Linli possessed considerable martial prowess. With her commendable talent and ample resources, she was already on the verge of breaking through to the innate stage at the tender age of 23. This formidable strength afforded her a clear view of the chaos unfolding outside the carriage. The remnants of Chun Air, reduced to mere fragments, were nowhere to be found. Yet the 4 headless corpses were glaringly apparent, striking Lin Li as exceptionally jarring. This was not a mere skirmish, it was a brutal slaughter. A mockery of Princess Yongning's ineptitude, executed with the most despicable means. And that lunatic spouting such outrageous claims. Did they truly believe their princess was some delicate flower to be easily trampled upon? Chapter 17. The death of a friend does not mean the death of the Taoist. The demise of a younger brother does not imply the fall of the eldest. Lin Li, who had accompanied Jun Yunshin for 15 years, felt her body tremble, her mind replaying the scene of the fire fox being slain over and over again. How dare such a wretched creature speak so boldly? She must be punished. It was only when Jun Yunshin's icy hand grasped Lin Li's shoulder that she came to her senses. "Your Highness, I am very angry, immensely so. The calmness of her voice, as still as stagnant water, sent a shiver down Lin Li's spine. She obediently rose and stood beside Jun Yanxin, her gaze filled with concern. Let the flower-arranging matron intervene and capture the two innate traitors. Let none escape. Yes. Clang, clang, clang. In just a matter of breaths, Xu Yong and Ling Mo had engaged in combat over 20 times. Where they passed, the bluestone shattered and whirlwinds swirled. The glint of blades flickered like shooting stars, vanishing in an instant. Ling Mo's blade truly lived up to its title of Swift Shadow Blade, executed with unparalleled speed. The traces of his movements intertwined in the air, rendering the true source of his lethal intent indistinguishable. Xu Yong wielded his sword with the might of military tradition, exuding a grandeur that focused on sheer force. Each strike could sever metal and iron, imbued with an icy killing intent. Their blades collided midair, one bearing overwhelming momentum, pressing forward with force, the other striking with the swiftness of a fleeting shadow from unexpected angles. The infamous Fire Fox, adorned in a flowing red gown, was not to be underestimated. With a mere flick of her wrist, fiery rings formed in the air, accompanied by the howling of sword energy slashing toward the carriage. The surrounding temperature soared, waves of scorching heat sweeping towards the vehicle. The rapidly rising heat agitated the horses, causing them to whinny restlessly. At the front of the carriage, the coachman furrowed his brow, casting a discontented glance toward the Fire Fox. With a flick of his hand, a brush made of jade appeared. Lines began to take shape in the void, with the world as his canvas and true essence as ink. With a delicate touch, a towering ice wall,